The story starts with a man who feels a sharp pain in his chest. He couldn't afford to see a doctor, so he endured the pain and even coughed up blood on his old tattered futon. The physical pain was bad enough, but his mental suffering was even worse. He had tried to live an honest life with a job, marriage, a child, and a house, but things had gone terribly wrong. He ended up buried in debt, working multiple part-time jobs and unable to see his daughter. Unfairly accused of cheating and stealing, he lost his job and was constantly harassed by debt collectors. He felt overwhelmed and wondered where he had gone wrong. Suddenly, a man in a fancy striped coat appeared by his bedside carrying a bag. The man could even see his beloved pet who had passed away a long time ago. The mysterious visitor explained that he wasn't here to lead him to the afterlife, but to offer him a fresh start. Using magic, he revealed a live conversation between his ex-wife and her lover. It turned out his ex-wife had dumped all her problems onto him. Even worse, his daughter wasn't biologically his. He was only responsible for her on paper, yet he had to pay child support. As the man listened, anger consumed him. He had noticed some warning signs before but had brushed them off, thinking he was just overthinking things. His difficult life had brought him to this miserable point. The guide offered him a choice of different worlds for his next life, taking into account his unhappy past. Thinking it over, the man learned that his boss had framed him for a crime. Fueled by rage, he expressed his desire for revenge, but the guide could only offer a happier afterlife fueled by his anger. Tears welled up in the man's eyes as he begged for revenge, but the guide could only let him choose his next world. Feeling overwhelmed, the man reluctantly picked a world filled with machines and space battleships, where people lived 7 times longer. Despite the promise of a longer and happier life, revenge was all he truly desired. In this new world, where the nobles held power despite advanced technology, he decided to live as a villain. Deceived and mocked in his previous life, he embraced a life of evil, rejecting the idea of living honestly, as it seemed futile in a world where old-fashioned feudalism had returned. His new life revolved around power, domination, and the pursuit of his wicked desires. As he lost consciousness, the guide's true intentions became clear. He enjoyed seeing the man suffer and admitted he caused the man's unhappiness just for fun. He liked watching others in pain and laughing as he confessed to messing with the man's ex-wife and her lover to make the man's life terrible. Content with his cruel actions, the guide decided to end this situation. He controlled the lover into breaking up with the woman. He pointed out all her mistakes and refused to take responsibility for a child who wasn't his. She cried and begged not to be left alone, but he didn't care about being with a cheater. The guide found this whole thing amusing. After she was left alone, she started thinking about her late husband. The guide found this funny because she was the one responsible for his death. He guessed what she would do in the future, but no matter what, she would still have a miserable life. The guide's goal was to watch the man who had died before cursing him in his next life's final moments. At that moment, a small light entered the room, slowly turning into a dog. It watched as the guide let the man have a bad fate, sending his soul to a world where people's lives were easily ruined. The guide looked forward to the man's future misery, knowing that people on Earth would easily believe in reincarnation. With some clever talking, he could fool anyone. Thinking about how to make the man suffer even more, the guide left through a door, with the dog following without him knowing. So just as the guide had promised, the man was reborn into a noble family with a new name, Liam Sarah Banfield. The guide kept his promise by making Liam the son of a count who ruled over a planet. Liam embraced his desire to be an evil lord and wondered if a life of indulgence awaited him. But that didn't matter as long as he could live life his way. While thinking about it, a letter arrived, saying that the guide had helped him. Curious, Liam read it. Soon his parents came in wishing him a happy 5th birthday and giving him their title and land as a gift. His mother offered to get him a customizable robot maid, and he could choose what he wanted. He decided to make the robot maid as perfect as possible, including an option for personal desire. His parents praised his choice, and he wondered if it was the guide's help. By starting fresh with his perfect robot maid and no parents around, Liam felt thankful to the guide. His parents also told him they were moving to a big mansion in the city, and asked him to sign some papers for their pension. Liam signed happily, excited about what lay ahead. A long time ago, the world was controlled by artificial intelligence until humans rebelled and set up their own government. These new leaders didn't like relying too much on AI, so they encouraged people to take care of themselves. On his way to the capital city, a guy named Liam found out that his parents weren't really good parents. They basically left all their problems for him to deal with while they enjoyed life in the capital. Liam didn't know he was being used, so he felt proud of being the boss in his area, even though he didn't have much power beyond that. One day, Liam's butler, Brian, came in and told him about a robot maid named Amagi, who was coming to help him. Liam thought it was funny because Amagi only needed a couple of hours of maintenance each week and could be customized easily. Liam thought he could use Amagi for his own desires and made some inappropriate moves on her, ignoring Brian's warnings. He also asked for a report on his area, but he had a hard time understanding it when Brian showed him the digital data. Liam realized that if he wanted to be a strong leader, he needed to understand what he was doing. Amagi, who was programmed to be an advisor, suggested that he use an education capsule to gain knowledge and improve himself. It would take 6 months, during which he'd be in a sort of hibernation. Brian didn't like the idea because the Empire didn't like people relying too much on AI, but Amagi left the decision up to Liam. The education capsule was a technology that could give you knowledge and make you stronger. Liam decided to go for it because he knew he had to get better at controlling people. He wanted to take things slowly and learn from AI to become a strong leader. Meanwhile, in a bar in Liam's area, the bartender and a customer talked about the new lord, Liam. He started taxing the people in the area now that he had control. The nobles hoped for some positive changes, even if they were small, and they didn't really care about the common folks. 2 years passed since Liam took over from the previous boss. The old boss had a strange taste in designing his castle. Brian, who was loyal to Liam, looked at a picture of Liam's great-grandfather, Alistair Sarah Banfield, with a lot of respect for serving him well. Unfortunately, as the new generation took over, things started going downhill. They spent money like crazy, piling up debts. They passed their money problems to Liam's dad and moved to the capital. Eventually, Liam's dad did the same after thinking about the past. One day, Brian came into Liam's office and Liam wondered why he was locking the door. Soon, Liam saw that the mansion was in terrible shape, and he couldn't understand how anyone could design such an awful place. Luckily, Brian agreed with him and told him that his taste was different from his father's. Liam was determined to start fresh. He decided to tear down the old castle and build a new one. He also wanted to let go of the current employees. His robot maid, Amagi, suggested rehiring them after giving them proper training for their jobs in the new castle. She agreed to demolish the old castle to save on costs. Liam knew building a new castle would take time and intended to proceed carefully. Brian supported this plan for construction costs. Amagi suggested sorting out their fleet, which had 30,000 ships, but only 20 were working. She thought it would be a good idea to reduce it to 3,000 to save money. Brian wasn't sure about this because he was worried about what other nobles and space pirates might think. Amagi argued that having 1,000 ships would be enough to deal with pirates and the current fleet members weren't skilled enough. Liam decided to let go of the whole fleet to get rid of the ineffective members. Amagi started to prepare for this, but Brian warned against relying too much on AI, fearing criticism from other noble houses. Liam, however, didn't pay much attention to those worries. He was determined to rebuild the fleet over time and match his status. Brian remained uneasy about Liam's decision and remembered how determined Alistair used to be. Liam then asked Amagi for a hug and started acting playfully, leaving Brian unsure how to react. As Liam explored his land, he found it in really bad shape, even worse than his previous world. The people there were struggling and it felt like he was stuck in the past. He got frustrated and wondered why his ancestors hadn't made the land better. Amagi explained that people would gradually improve it over time and most nobles let them do it on their own. Liam questioned whether his guide had been truthful. Amagi clarified that by investing tax money wisely, they could make the land better in the next 20 years. Liam agreed, realizing he needed to invest now for future benefits. He wanted personal power to learn martial arts for self-defense and strength and not be vulnerable as he used to be with debt collectors. Amagi tried to stop him, but Liam remained determined. He told her to find the best teacher. He didn't want to be powerless, he wanted to take charge. Meanwhile, the guide watched Liam's old wife, who was struggling and looked tired in old clothes. The guide found some satisfaction in seeing people suffer and decided to keep an eye on Liam rather than do nothing. Knowing that Liam preferred artificial companions over real people due to trust issues, the guide saw an opportunity to manipulate him. The guide also knew Liam desired power and sent Yasushi, a highly skilled individual, to assist him. The guide hoped Liam would like Yasushi and planned to meet Liam again in a different form later on. At Banfield's base on Port Yasushi, a guide arrived. He took the job as an instructor on this remote planet because he had debts to pay. Yasushi met Liam at his house and introduced himself. He told Liam not to be too serious and warned him that his martial arts move was super dangerous and not to use it carelessly. Yasushi wanted Liam's guardian Amagi to leave, but she refused. Yasushi said he'd only stay if she left, and Liam agreed. Amagi gave Liam a device to spot any cheats and then left him with Yasushi. With Amagi gone, Yasushi told Liam to place wooden logs where his sword couldn't reach. After Liam did that, Yasushi showed off a cool move where he drew and sheathed his sword so fast that it sliced all the logs in a blink. The cheat detecting device didn't catch anything. Liam was curious how Yasushi did it, but Yasushi just said Liam would figure it out through training. Liam liked Yasushi's style and agreed to be trained. As Liam checked the sliced logs, Yasushi was secretly happy about how easily he fooled Liam. But in truth, Yasushi was no expert in sword fighting. He was a con artist trying to get money. He thought he'd get caught for sure, especially with Amagi's device. To escape, he planned to pretend he used magic, but luckily for him, the device was broken and couldn't spot simple tricks. Liam was making fast progress with his training, which made Yasushi happy. He wondered what else to teach Liam while watching videos online. Even though people said bad things about the Banfield family, Liam seemed like a hardworking guy living a simple life. Yasushi couldn't understand why Liam wanted to become strong when he had people to protect him. Yasushi knew he had to be careful because Amagi was keeping an eye on him. He also figured out that the nobles were putting their debts and duties on their kids. Yasushi was worried that if people found out it could end very badly for him. After some time, the new mansion was finished. It was simpler and roomier than the old one. While he was at his office, Amagi reminded Liam that it was time to get into the capsule again, a process that would take 6 months. The capsule had lots of knowledge that would take more than 10 years to learn. Liam really wanted to learn as much as he could before becoming an adult. So he left Amagi in charge of running things in the territory, but she seemed distracted, so Liam asked her about it. She showed him a file and brought in the person who sent it. A fancy-looking man covered in jewels came in and said that the expenses in the file were necessary for his job. Amagi said he had been stealing money, which was hurting the territory. Instead of feeling sorry, the man had the nerve to smile in front of Liam. Amagi then told Liam about more bad things the man did, like bribing and stealing money. Liam asked if it made the man happy to blame his friends for his mistakes. The man said that people like Amagi couldn't understand why he did what he did, comparing his actions to making things work smoothly. Liam asked if it was fun to make others suffer for his own mistakes. The man got mad and said that Liam's easy life was because of him. In a moment like something that happened with his old boss, Liam quickly killed the man. Amagi cleaned up the blood and asked if he was okay. Liam realized he did something serious and asked how he could talk big when he depended on someone like the man. Determined to stop corruption, Liam told Amagi to find all the officials involved so he could punish them. Amagi tried to calm him down and told him to put the sword away. Liam was really mad because of his past and what he did. He only got better when Amagi talked to him. She said there were lots of bad officials and punishing all of them would make more problems. So, she suggested getting some AI to help keep an eye on things. Liam agreed to buy 30 AI machines even though some people said bad things about using them too much. He said he trusted Amagi more than anyone else. With things getting ready, Liam wanted a place where no one would go against him outside of the territory. In a bar, people were talking about Liam. They heard that he had punished corrupt officials, and one person learned this from a cleaner working at Liam's place. They also found out that Liam was making kids go to school for 6 years instead of just 3. They thought that soon they'd need more workers for building stuff. Even though some folks didn't like what Liam did, most thought he was fair. This made the nobles worry a lot. They wondered if things were changing for the better or if it was all just a trick. But they all knew that Liam had a lot of power and wondered what he'd do next. Liam got rid of the previous staff and new workers took their place. Brian, the guy in charge, told the new workers what to do. One lady asked about looking after Liam at night. Brian said not to worry, as Liam had a fancy helper named Amagi. Somebody noticed that Liam always had a doll with him. Brian said not to make fun of it. Even though Amagi was a robot, Liam really trusted her. Maybe because his parents left him when he was a kid. Brian wished Liam's dad had raised him better and warned the workers not to disrespect Amagi. Liam, now 30 years old, was focused on being good with a sword. He practiced a lot, but he got frustrated because he wasn't getting better at it. His teacher Yasushi said that sword stuff was hard, but Liam also needed to learn magic to be really good. Yasushi told Liam to spend 10 years learning magic basics, especially if he wanted to fight with big robot suits. Yasushi asked how things were going with Liam's land, and Liam talked about building stuff and organizing soldiers. Yasushi wanted to see how good Liam was, so he asked him to fight blindfolded and with heavy swords. Liam did really well, and Yasushi was surprised. He worried that Liam was too harsh with bad guys, so Yasushi started saving money and planning to leave. As time passed, Liam kept getting better. Yasushi asked him to be better at seeing things and made him use even heavier swords in training. Impressed by Liam's relentless progress, he went to the storehouse to find valuable items to make money. Yasushi stumbled upon a humanoid figure and got a new idea. He asked Amagi for help in making it work for Liam's training. Amagi questioned the use of an old model and suggested buying a new one, but Yasushi insisted on the old one because it would give Liam time to learn. Despite Amagi's objections, Yasushi insisted it was the best method. Yasushi instructed Amagi to prepare the Gundam and then left. Amagi wondered if Yasushi was really a swordmaster, as his records seemed too clean, almost as if someone had erased them. She decided to fulfill the order. The mobile knight from the Empire factory required a lot of funds, but Amagi was committed to protecting her master. She asked David for help. The next day, Liam recognized Amagi by her footsteps and asked about the progress of the mobile knight. Amagi was frustrated because Yasushi insisted on using an old model instead of buying a new one. Liam trusted Yasushi's judgment and continued his training. At a local bar, a satisfied customer praised the owner's business and his own success. They both wondered about the rapid changes happening around them. The owner reminisced about the golden era 500 years ago and the current lord's silence for the past 2 decades. Rumors circulated that the new lord liked dolls, an unusual trait for nobles. But as long as he did good work, the townsfolk didn't mind. As the repairs on the mobile knight finished, Liam was impressed by its appearance. Nias Carlin, the technology officer from the 7th Weapon Factory, talked about the challenges they faced during its development. Nias asked if it was okay for the mobile knight to lack assist functions like automatic transmission. Yasushi affirmed Liam's preference and tried to get closer to Nias, but she was evasive. Nias explained that the craft operated solely on manual controls and Liam would be piloting it. Liam considered ordering Nias to spend time with Yasushi but thought it unnecessary, believing Yasushi was just playing around and that Nias would be safe. He thought Yasushi was honorable. Liam entered the cockpit with Nias, which had been enchanted with space magic for his comfort. Nias discussed the mobile knight's specifications as Liam settled in. He found the seat comfortable and appreciated its sleek black appearance, which was unique because most nobles decorated their mobile knights extravagantly. When Liam activated the engine, the mobile knight recognized him as its rightful owner, refusing to respond to anyone else's commands. However, when Liam tried to maneuver it, it crashed. Nias explained that the lack of self-balancing made control challenging. Liam needed to learn to control it like an extension of his body. He wondered if becoming a first-rate pilot was possible through his pursuit. Nias had explained that if he could move the machine, he was already a skilled pilot. She gave him instructions about the machine's features. Liam slowly used his imagination to make the machine stand up, impressing Nias. After Nias finished explaining, Liam accidentally touched her, and she suggested taking a break. Meanwhile, Brian watched as Liam operated an old machine and was concerned about its unusual movements. Yasushi, on the other hand, had inappropriate thoughts about Nias and was upset with Liam's actions. Both Amagi and Brian questioned if Liam's behavior was appropriate for a swordmaster. Nias left after explaining the machine for 3 months. Yasushi wanted to get Nias's contact information and wanted to teach Liam a lesson for accidentally hurting him. He trained Liam hard for a few days, making him deflect balls and improving his skills. Surprisingly, Liam succeeded in deflecting the balls and even created a protective barrier. Yasushi was amazed at Liam's progress and decided to leave, saying he needed to focus on his own training. When Liam suggested opening a dojo for Yasushi, he declined as he was on his own journey. Liam asked for an assessment of his skills and Yasushi agreed before leaving. Some time passed and the guide went searching for Liam. He was surprised by how quickly the territory had grown, and he was curious about what Liam had learned from the conman. To his amazement, Liam easily chopped some logs with his sword, even though they were far away. Amagi and Brian praised his skill, but Liam still felt like he wasn't as good as his master. The guide was shocked by Liam's abilities and started looking for Yasushi. A drunk Yasushi was talking to a girl and boasting about how his student had become a great swordsman in just 10 years, while he was still not that great. Liam's skill, like cutting through steel without using a sword, seemed unbelievable. Yasushi felt deceived but admitted that the guide had been clever in choosing such a mentor for Liam. Liam's gratitude annoyed the guide, who thought about ways to harm him. While watching Liam's daily routine, the guide thought of ways to make things go wrong for him, believing he could end Liam's rule. However, Liam had only a doll and an old butler with him, and despite what the guide thought, Liam worked hard. As time went by, Liam realized that developing the territory was a good choice. It allowed him to raise taxes, control his people, and live as a bad ruler. The guide felt a connection with Liam in building something up just to tear it down, eagerly waiting to see what would happen next. When Liam talked about starting a harem by forcefully gathering beautiful girls, the guide found it amusing. He imagined a scenario where these unwilling women would betray Liam and hurt him emotionally, just like in the past. The guide believed that Liam would suffer greatly. Then Amagi came in and told Liam that the Empire wanted to recruit soldiers and military personnel from his territory. Although Liam didn't initially think they would be useful, Amagi insisted that they were skilled and well-trained. Liam agreed to accept them. With his plans in motion, the guide prepared to leave temporarily, thinking that he might be working too hard. He was disgusted by Liam's overwhelming gratitude but looked forward to being entertained on his next visit. As time passed, Liam turned 40 but still looked youthful. Amagi told him about Nias, who came from the 7th Weapon Factory to inspect a mobile knight named Avid. Liam wondered why she was here. Amagi thought she came to sell their factory's products because they were doing well financially. Liam asked why they didn't sell to the imperial family or others. Amagi explained that their factory's designs were not as good as others, making them a less attractive choice. Despite several factories, the 3rd factory was still popular because of its high quality and well-designed products. Liam was curious about Nias's visit and decided to hear her out. Nias greeted Liam in a seductive way, even though her attire didn't follow imperial rules. Liam got straight to the point, asking her what she wanted to sell. She talked about their battleships and their features, and Amagi mentioned their high cost. Liam wondered why they didn't sell to the Empire. Nias revealed that their ships had failed the Empire's inspections. While their ships were slightly better in terms of performance, people preferred stylish ones. Nias begged Liam to buy the ships, and although he hesitated, he eventually agreed to purchase 300 ships with some modifications. This left Nias relieved. Brian walked down the hallway feeling happy about all the guests. He saw Nias talking excitedly to her colleague about selling 300 ships. Her colleague was surprised and didn't quite believe her at first, but Nias convinced him that Liam was really impressed with her. Her colleague even asked Nias to marry him, but she said no, suggesting they should just be proud of her achievement. Brian overheard this and started worrying about Liam. He was concerned that Liam might have been tricked by Nias into something he shouldn't have done. Liam had a meeting scheduled with Thomas Henfrey, who was the exclusive merchant for the Banfield house. Thomas came with a suitcase full of gold. Liam asked about buying some yellow suits and playfully called Thomas Echegoya, a name Thomas didn't understand. Instead, Thomas asked to be called the Henry Chamber of Commerce and asked Liam for help. He needed 100 battleships for a dangerous journey. Liam wondered if the trip was really so perilous. Thomas explained that space pirates along the way were a big threat. Liam checked with Amagi, who confirmed they could get 100 ships. Liam also told Thomas to bring more yellow suits and profits next time, then he ordered the ships to leave. Thomas's team was impressed with how Liam, a young lord, was improving the Banfield territory. They thought he was very generous, but they didn't understand why he liked gold so much when it wasn't scarce. Even Thomas was curious. Thomas had brought other valuable things like mithril jewels, but Liam seemed to like gold the most. They couldn't figure out why, but they liked how Liam reinvested taxes into the territory, which was different from most nobles. To succeed in the trade, Thomas proudly showed the gold to Brian. He admitted taking a bribe and asked Amagi for her opinion. They wondered why Liam was so focused on gold when things like mithril were worth more. Liam agreed that other things were valuable but thought gold was more practical as currency. After Brian left, Liam was amazed at how much the Banfield territory had improved since he took over. He also thought the people's clothes lacked style. So, he decided to invest in businesses that make things look nice and hire entertainers, even though Amagi didn't like the idea. But when the entertainers arrived, they weren't what Liam had in mind. He even met a group of women with big breasts where people cared a lot about breast size. Liam canceled everything, unhappy with the situation. This upset the guide who was watching. Even though Liam called himself an evil lord, he treated women with respect and didn't do wild things. What's more, everyone saw him as a kind lord. Liam had once been filled with gratitude, but it had caused the guide significant discomfort. This included feelings of nausea, dizziness, ulcers, and headaches. Gratitude turned out to be an unexpected poison for the evil being. Realizing that his plans were futile, the guide made a decision. He would destroy the planet. Liam distanced himself from the guide, ensuring that his gratitude couldn't reach him. Instead, he set up the space pirates, who had a lot of free time on their hands. Among them was a pirate captain known as the Pirate King, and Liam manipulated his thoughts. The Pirate King reveled in destroying planets and looting them. When one of his crew members suggested sparing the people, he swiftly dismissed the idea by crushing the person's head. He didn't want any objections. Wiping his hands with a towel, he found the raid to be too easy this time, with their haul being quite substantial. He inquired about his favorite girl, who was chained in a room. She had been the first to retain her sanity after becoming the captain's plaything. The Pirate King decided it was time to dispose of her, as he had exhausted her entertainment value and sought a new toy to replace her. As he played with a cube, his subordinates asked about their next target. The Pirate King set his sights on the recently rumored noble Banfield, who was hailed as a benevolent lord thanks to Liam's efforts in developing his territory. The Pirate King desired to destroy it, and he brandished the box in his hand. He targeted someone upright and challenging, which excited him as he wanted to witness their downfall. The guide manipulated the Pirate King's thoughts, leading him to target Liam and prepare to unleash chaos upon his territory. Liam had felt frustrated because he couldn't go outside, even though he lived in a vast intergalactic nation. Amagi had explained that it was for his safety. Liam, however, had a desire for power and was willing to be a strict ruler who collected high taxes if it meant having control. Amagi quickly rejected this idea, saying it would jeopardize their plan to pay off debts and should only be considered in emergencies. Frustrated, Liam turned to Amagi, longing for power and control. Then, an idea struck him. He decided to find attractive people in his territory and bring them to his mansion, where he could do as he pleased. Amagi was surprised, revealing that they had already been gathering beautiful people from their territory, explaining why all the maids looked stunning. Amagi offered to assign one of the maids to Liam, but he declined, saying he wasn't in the mood. Instead, he brought entertainers to the mansion, only to realize they weren't well trained in his territory. Amagi suggested looking for outsiders, but Liam refused, fearing that it would reveal his negative intentions. He lamented his inability to exert his power as the lord of the territory. Amagi reassured him that he was the lord of the whole planet, but their hands were tied due to the enormous debt inherited by Liam's family. As they discussed the debts, Brian burst into the room with troubling news. The pirates had declared war on House Banfield. In the Banfield government office, a video message from the pirate leader played, demanding the surrender of their properties and attractive people. A heated argument ensued, with some favoring negotiations and others advocating for battle despite the overwhelming enemy fleet. Liam expressed his disappointment at the bounty on the pirate leader, wishing it were higher. As he thought about it, the room suddenly fell silent. The guide appeared through a mysterious door. Liam was shocked and questioned why the pirate was allowed to approach him when he had promised a happy and peaceful life. The guide explained that the pirates were a gift to Liam as he was about to come of age, intending to bestow prestige upon him. The guide inquired about Liam's debt, and Liam expressed his regret for being held back by it. The guide revealed that the pirate leader possessed an unimaginable amount of treasure. If Liam defeated him, he could gain both glory and wealth. Excited by the opportunity, Liam thanked the guide for his help, and the guide left, saying it was his duty. Liam stood up and declared to his subordinates that it was time for his first battle. He was determined to defeat the pirate leader. When objections arose, Liam silenced them, asserting his authority as the Lord, and ordered them to prepare for war. He urged them to gather all the forces they could, including his personal mobile knight, Ovid. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Amagi had finished her report, and Ovid had been transported to the spaceport. Brian expressed concern about the pirates' attack on the territory, which was already in a fragile state, but Amagi reassured him, saying the outcome was uncertain, and Liam's decision wasn't a mistake. She shared insider information that the Empire was sending reinforcements. Brian worried it might be too late and lamented that Liam was born at the wrong time. On the battleship, Liam felt excitement as he got ready for combat. The guide watched him, harboring sinister intentions of using Liam as a pawn, just as Goaz had done with the treasure that gave him advanced technology. Despite Liam's villainous nature, he seemed not to have learned from past experiences. The guide expected to see Liam's gratitude turn into anguish and a scornful smile from him. The dog that had followed Liam from Earth observed the unfolding events from a distance. The guide believed it was time for Liam to know the truth and looked forward to being entertained by him. On the battleship, many crew members were talking to each other in a hurry. Liam asked his assistant when the battle was going to begin, only to discover that it had already started. Liam felt confused and wondered what they had been doing all day if they weren't in the middle of a battle. The assistant explained that big battles were complicated and they needed to be careful, especially when they were outnumbered. Liam remembered what he had learned in his education about space distances and wondered if all battles were like this. The assistant told him that it was rare, but sometimes officers acted recklessly when there were no aggressive moves from the enemy, indicating dire circumstances. Liam was not happy with the military's actions and decided to order an attack. However, their signals were blocked, and another signal revealed the enemy's attack direction from above. Liam noticed that the enemy had chosen to split their forces, weakening themselves. It became clear that the attacking ships were from the surrendered countries and considered expendable pawns. Liam thought that the signal blocking should have been done earlier to disrupt their communication. In a tricky situation where he couldn't give orders, the Banfield troops still managed to handle the situation successfully and defeated the 500 attacking ships. Liam was amazed and realized that Banfield must have capable subordinates. Goaz decided to reward whoever captured Liam alive, intending to make him a new toy. Goaz was excited about having someone capable around and planned to harm the people of Banfield after the battle. His subordinate suggested launching an attack to show Banfield how true pirates operated. The battlefield turned into a clash of energy beams as both forces unleashed their firepower. Goaz was delighted to see the Banfield troops retreating under their relentless assault. Suddenly, a spaceship exploded, indicating that space mines were scattered around. Goaz and his subordinate were impressed by Banfield's capabilities as the Banfield forces systematically destroyed the enemy ships one by one. Goaz grew angry at their resistance despite the odds stacked against them. He forced his remaining forces onto the battleship, intending to gain control of the war through sheer numbers. He believed that the nobles and private armies would flee, allowing him to strike back eventually. As the retreating Banfield enemies were pushed far back, it secured a victory for Goaz's fleet. Goaz and his crew celebrated and taunted the Banfield forces for their weak resistance. Liam asked how long they intended to retreat, and his assistant explained that they needed to prolong the battle until the Imperial reinforcements arrived. Liam questioned where those orders were coming from and expressed his desire to win the war with his own power, and end it quickly before the Imperial army arrived. The assistant was amazed by Liam's determination. Liam posed a hypothetical scenario. What would they do if the enemy attacked their planet? They both agreed that defending the planet would be impossible, even if they achieved victory. Losing their territory, like Amagi and others, would make victory meaningless. Liam then ordered a full frontal assault and was determined to lead the charge with his personal mobile knight Avid inside the ship. Goaz wondered why Liam refused to retreat despite the odds. He suspected that Liam planned to attack his weakened forces as they closed the distance. Suddenly, a mobile knight approached Goaz's battleship, prompting him to deploy all his knights and personal guards. Liam swiftly defeated them, challenging them to stop him if they could. Liam's subordinates admired his ferocity and acknowledged the effort he had put into honing his skills. They knew about Liam's tough upbringing, being abandoned by his parents, and assigned to a deteriorating territory where he had to battle pirates. They wondered how he managed to thrive under such circumstances. Despite being expelled from the Imperial Army for being honest, they feared being dismissed from the Imperial family. But they were grateful to serve someone like Liam, who valued his territory above all else. They believed Liam's maniacal laughter was meant to boost their morale. In a secluded corner, Goaz found himself in a precarious position, realizing his adversaries had cornered him sooner than expected. Desperate for a way out, he contemplated surrendering the treasures he had prepared in the hope of securing his freedom. Suddenly, he heard a voice that sent shivers down his spine. He inquired about the voice's identity, only to be confronted by the guide, who offered him extraordinary powers. Consumed by fear, Goaz accepted the powers, allowing a dark fog to envelop him and transform him into an entity beyond ordinary humans. Now possessing impenetrable skin and tremendous power, Goaz advanced toward Liam, confident that the young knight would finally meet his match. The guide had overexerted his powers and felt weaker, but he proceeded, certain that Liam's arrogance would be his downfall. The guide left the scene, and a loyal dog belonging to Liam, who had failed to protect his master, looked at the box dropped by Goaz and reminisced about the past when Liam lived with him. Sensing Liam's presence, the faithful dog ventured forth. As Liam strolled down the corridor, his attention was drawn to a distant sight, a dog's wagging tail. Curiosity sparked within him, prompting Liam to inquire with his subordinates if they had noticed the dog as well. Disappointingly, they reported that their lifeform sensor hadn't detected any living beings. However, the sight of the tail triggered memories of Liam's own faithful companion, a brown-tailed dog who had never betrayed him, long forgotten until now. Liam resolved to investigate the location and provide safety to the dog if it indeed turned out to be his lost companion. In the vicinity, Liam noticed a captivating golden alchemy box and decided to take it, driven by his fondness for the color gold, confirming his affinity for gold. His subordinates acknowledged the rumor surrounding Liam's preference, and he proceeded to search for more treasures. Eventually, Liam stumbled upon what appeared to be a dead end. Unbeknownst to others, Liam's extraordinary senses detected the presence of a concealed door, and he swiftly revealed its entrance. To his dismay, the treasure room lacked the anticipated gold, but it held a collection of valuable items, a rewarding find nonetheless. Among the room's contents, Liam spotted a katana hanging on the wall. Intrigued, he claimed it as his own. Liam recognized its usefulness as a great weapon. Suddenly, an emergency interrupted his exploration of his treasure hunting. A report revealed a battle against someone resembling Goaz. He effortlessly deflected their bullets and optical weapons. Despite his subordinates urging retreat, Liam ignored their pleas and pushed forward. A group of soldiers fired shots at their opponent, but it had no effect. Goaz emerged from the smoke, scolding them for trespassing and threatening to make them his playthings. Without hesitation, Goaz grabbed a soldier and demanded Liam's presence. Recognizing Goaz as an augmented human, Liam's team rushed to bring him back to their ship for safety. Liam managed to wound Goaz, surprising him. Then a child stood before Goaz and Liam declared that his sword was useless, having been damaged. Goaz tried to attack but had his hand swiftly severed by another sword in Liam's possession. Realizing the new sword was among his treasures, Goaz demanded it back, but Liam marveled at its durability. Goaz's severed hand transformed into tentacles, but Liam sliced through them all. Liam scolded him for being noisy and his subordinates caught up. Goaz was shocked to learn Liam's true identity, but Liam insisted on being addressed as a lord. Goaz's frustration grew as he was ignored. This made him very angry and he attacked again, but Liam easily stopped him. Liam warned Goaz firmly not to cause trouble. Seeing Liam's incredible strength, Goaz felt a mix of fear and admiration. He begged for forgiveness, hoping to make up for his reckless action. But as Liam looked at the tattoos on Goaz's body, memories of past encounters with loan sharks came back. Strangely, he found satisfaction in having control over someone's life and death. Goaz offered his treasures to make amends, but Liam claimed them for himself, seeing Goaz as a way to get a bounty from the Empire. In a surprising turn, Goaz proposed serving under Liam, citing his strength compared to Liam's subordinates. He even promised a valuable treasure worth more than the bounty on his head. Liam saw this as an advantage and extracted information from Goaz before handing him over to the Empire. Liam remained firm in his plans despite Goaz's pleas. However, one of Liam's subordinates questioned whether Goaz should live, considering he had killed many Banfield soldiers. Liam explained the strategic value of keeping him alive, but his subordinates argued that someone as dangerous as Goaz made little difference whether he lived or died. Confirming their suspicions, Liam ended Goaz's life with a single strike, unmoved by his pleas for mercy. With Goaz gone, Liam instructed his subordinates to prove the bounty by placing Goaz's head in a bag. News came that the ship had been secured, and a man referred to as a breeder by the pirates was captured. Liam kicked the breeder as they approached, prompting his subordinates to investigate. The breeder offered to modify individuals according to Liam's preferences, but Liam beheaded him, finding his actions disgusting. Inside the room, Liam saw grotesquely modified bodies, a reflection of Goaz's depraved hobbies. When asked about Goaz's fate, Liam revealed he had been killed along with the breeder. The captives pleaded with Liam to save them from their torment, but Liam chose to save them despite the extensive and expensive reconstructive procedures they would require. Back on the ship, Liam celebrated his victory against the pirates with Amagi and Brian, who were relieved to see him return unharmed. Amagi mentioned a message from the capital, indicating their intention to honor Liam for eradicating the space pirates. Liam remembered the guide's words, realizing their prediction had come true. Amagi also told him about Thomas and Nias's visit. The Henfrey Chamber of Commerce wanted to buy the spoils, while the 7th factory aimed to acquire the pirates' equipment made in another country because it had valuable and rare materials. The 7th factory wanted to use these materials for research. Liam decided to meet Thomas first as he enjoyed bantering with him, despite receiving a fair price for their items. After the sale, Liam received a lot of money, allowing him to pay off their debt comfortably. He also asked Thomas to arrange for doctors to treat the captives. As usual, Thomas offered the usual gold bars that made Liam happy. Sometime later, in a room, Liam got ready for an award ceremony. He wore a fancy outfit to meet important people like nobles and the emperor. Then 4 people came in, and Liam asked who they were. Amagi told him they were his parents and grandparents, which brought back memories of how they burdened him with their debts. Liam's mother laughed at his jokes, but his father questioned if he had really forgotten about them over the past 40 years. Liam's mother was surprised that he still kept a doll she had given him and told him to get rid of it, which made Liam mad. Amagi offered to wait in another room, but Liam wanted her to stay. Liam asked them why they were here, and they said they wanted the money he was going to get as a reward to pay off their debts. They also asked for more money and help with their shopping. Liam told Amagi to send them away, and they cursed him as they were dragged out. Even though Liam didn't have to pay their debts, merchants and lenders still came to him to settle them and protect his reputation. Amagi suggested giving them more money in exchange for cutting ties with them, and Liam told her to prepare the paperwork. Meanwhile, the guide, who couldn't move between worlds anymore, was getting frustrated. People's gratitude was shifting from Liam to the guide, which annoyed him. He overheard Liam's family arguing and manipulated them into becoming Liam's enemies, planning to bring him down. As Amagi walked down the corridor, she remembered her talk with Liam. He had wanted to take her to the award ceremony, but she convinced him not to because it might ruin his image. She overheard Liam's family plotting to take his wealth and change the family's leadership through government channels, using his association with an AI as an excuse. They even talked about the possibility of assassinating Liam. Amagi realized she needed to distance herself from Liam after hearing this. The award ceremony at the palace ended quickly. Liam's father argued with the Prime Minister about the family's approval. The Prime Minister said they had already gone through the process recently, so no approval was given. He also mentioned Liam's success in dealing with pirates in his area. Liam's father said Liam brought an AI doll into the palace, which he thought tarnished Banfield's reputation. The Prime Minister disagreed, saying there were no clear rules against having an AI in the palace. It was a matter of preference. As their argument continued, the Prime Minister pointed out that Liam had paid the neglected taxes, while Liam's father now intended to do the same. The Prime Minister questioned why he hadn't done it earlier. He also revealed that the reward money would be used to pay debts held by House Banfield and that Liam's contributions to the kingdom outweighed theirs. He warned them to behave for a peaceful future. Some people in the room abused their power once again. Liam rested his head on Amagi's lap and thought about the fancy party he had attended. Amagi asked if he had enjoyed it, and he denied it but admitted he was surprised. Amagi mentioned that Liam would soon become an adult and had been with him for 40 years. Confused by her words, Liam asked her about it. Amagi explained that she couldn't stay with him because the Empire had a prejudice against AI. She insisted it wasn't a joke and that everything she did was for his sake. Liam remembered when his wife had once loved him but betrayed him in a vulnerable moment. He accused Amagi of leaving him too, thinking she would eventually abandon him. Amagi reassured him that the time with him was the happiest she had ever experienced, and that's why she needed to leave. She had prepared a successor, but Liam ordered her to stay, and she complied. Amagi assured Liam that she would stay with him for as long as possible. On a planet that Christiana once called her home, it was in ruins, and her family and people had perished. She was furious at Goaz for breaking his promise to protect her territory when she surrendered. Goaz heartlessly taunted her, saying her planet was no longer a part of this world. He used information from her followers against her and laughed wickedly about evil prevailing. Despite enduring torture, Christiana hoped for someone to defeat Goaz and refused to accept a world where evil won. One day, she woke up to find herself miraculously restored to her former beauty through a regeneration process. The doctor assured her it was real, and she felt grateful that Count Banfield had funded her treatment and set up a facility for former captives of pirates. Everyone received the care they needed. The doctor relayed Liam's message, urging her to focus on recovery, including mental well-being. Christiana remembered a knight who had asked her for a favor, and she discovered it was Lord Banfield. She rested, planning to repay the debt at the Banfield estate someday. Brian gave an update on the treatment facility, reporting that the treatments were progressing well. Liam was pleasantly surprised because he had momentarily forgotten about the facility. He really wanted a reliable facility in his territory. Fortunately, the treatments were expected to lead to a full recovery within a few years. The facility also helped people rebuild their lives, including entertainers and tech experts, some of whom were quite attractive. Liam thought about how their children would inherit their beauty and expressed interest in including them in his group if they met his standards. Brian noticed how graceful these people were, but Liam had a different idea. He remembered a box he had taken from Goaz and mentioned it to Brian. Brian, who had experience as an adventurer and knowledge about such objects, thought it might be a replica of the legendary alchemy box, which could turn non-living things into valuable minerals. Liam was excited about the idea of unlimited wealth, but Brian cautioned that it was just a legend. Acquiring the real alchemy box could erase Banfield's enormous debt. Liam suggested searching for the real alchemy box, but Brian advised against chasing such fantasies because Liam was now the lord of the Banfield house. Seeing how serious Brian was, Liam agreed to put aside such ambitions. At night, Liam thought about the alchemy box's authenticity. He followed Brian's instructions and held his katana as he opened the box. Playfully, he pretended to extract gold. To his surprise, ancient symbols appeared before his eyes in a circle. Liam remembered studying this in his magic class. When he clicked on the word gold written in ancient letters, his katana actually turned into gold. Excited, he tested other items and found that they all transformed into different minerals based on his input. Liam felt overjoyed and apologized to Brian for doubting him, expressing his gratitude. However, unknown to Liam, the guide was in excruciating pain as his powers were being drained away by Liam's gratitude. Filled with anger, the guide cursed Liam and vowed to seek revenge by tormenting him and reveling in his suffering. Meanwhile, Liam peacefully slept, content with possessing the alchemy box, while the guide continued to scream in agony. A decade later, Liam reached adulthood, and Brian, shedding tears of joy, wished him a happy 50th birthday. Liam reassured Brian to stop crying and asked about his plans for the day. Amagi informed Liam that his coming-of-age ceremony would start in an hour, followed by parties scheduled for today and tomorrow evening. Liam rejected all these arrangements, but Brian insisted it was impossible. As Liam prepared to leave, a female warrior complimented his attire, saying anything would look good on him. In return, he complimented her outfit. The warrior was Christiana Rita Rose Blair, also known as Tia. She had completed their rehabilitation program within a year and volunteered to become Liam's knight. Liam had heard of her exceptional skills and asked if she could start working immediately. Tia replied that it was not an issue, but she lacked the qualifications of an imperial knight, so she needed to leave the planet to obtain them. She expressed regret that she couldn't be of immediate assistance to Liam. The knights from noble families usually went through academy training and real-life missions, a process that took around 30 years. Liam suggested to Tia that she should take her time because he had primarily chosen her for her appearance. He believed that being served by beautiful girls was the embodiment of the evil lord role he wanted to play. He also mentioned his desire to live in a large mansion and spend money lavishly. However, he soon realized he had built a house that was too big and needed a way to travel between its various locations. In the hall, Nias and Thomas were waiting for Liam's coming-of-age ceremony. Thomas was impressed by Liam's simplicity, as he didn't build a castle made of gold. Nias appreciated Liam's decision to prioritize functionality over looks. Among the guests, there were notable merchants and representatives from other weapon factories looking for opportunities. However, Thomas and Nias were concerned about the absence of influential nobles among the attendees. They worried that the emergence of a powerful new Count Lord like Liam could pose a threat to some weaker nobles. Liam finally entered the hall, surprising Thomas by bringing Tia with him. She became the first officer appointed by Liam. Nias speculated whether her appointment was based on her looks, a notion that Thomas couldn't deny. Tia had a unique aura compared to the others, and there were rumors suggesting she might be the Princess Knight who was captured by Goaz a long time ago. Nias remarked that she must be significantly older now, although it was just speculation. Thomas believed that if such a person could serve Liam, he would undoubtedly become a remarkable lord in the future. After that, Liam had gone to space again to track down more pirates. Elisha, who worked at the third weapon factory, wondered if their weapons had met Liam's expectations. Liam could tell that the weapons had performed even better than he had hoped. When he heard that the Banfield House was looking to purchase a Dreadnought-class battleship, Elisha offered their factory's products. Just then, Neas came running and exclaimed that Liam had already promised to buy from the 7th weapon factory. Elisha couldn't believe that someone like Neas, a mere technology officer, had been sent for negotiations. But Neas proudly declared that she had been promoted to the captain position. Liam was surprised to learn that the two already knew each other. Elisha explained that while Neas was an incredible tech officer, her sales skills were lacking. Neas argued that she was the best salesperson in their factory, but Elisha pointed out that it was only because of Liam's previous purchases. Liam was taken aback by this revelation and reluctantly agreed to buy 100 ships from Elisha. Just then, an officer reported that they had already wiped out the pirate fleet, and Liam ordered them to seize everything. Shortly after, Amagi welcomed Liam back and reminded him to consider his reputation after his battle against the vicious pirates. Liam claimed he was looking for a worthy opponent to fight, but Amagi informed him that he had already been branded as the pirate hunter, and people were now avoiding him. Liam didn't want to give up though, as the pirates were his source of income. Liam and Amagi then entered a warehouse filled with the spoils from their space raids. Liam took out an alchemy box and transformed everything into various resources that they could later exchange for money. Liam wondered if it would be wise to pay off his debt immediately, but Amagi cautioned against it, as it might raise suspicions about the source of his payment. She also mentioned Liam's recent purchases from 2 different factories, warning him about the need for future maintenance when hoarding too much equipment. Changing the subject, Liam asked about which noble house he would join for training. Amagi hadn't heard anything yet, but Liam didn't care which house it would be. Typically, descendants of noble families trained under other noble houses before adulthood, but Liam had faced numerous rejections due to his predecessor's infamous reputation. Liam could only hope that his guide could assist him in this matter. Later, Brian found a house where Liam could receive training. Liam wasn't excited about it, knowing that training was just a pretext to strengthen ties with other noble houses. However, Brian revealed that the Razel House put applicants through genuine training. They were known for their rare minerals and processing technology, although Liam noticed that their surrounding territories were still poor, with some of the population migrating to Banfield territory. Liam suddenly had an idea to develop the new territories for entertainment, but Amagi reminded him to complete his education capsule training first. Liam entrusted everything to Amagi, leaving Brian feeling envious and disheartened. Meanwhile, at the Razel Viscounty, Randolph Sarah Rozelle reviewed the training applicants and identified the heir from the Exner house who could be useful in the future. The guide awaited the right moment and tampered with Liam's application data. However, the guide's power was insufficient, and they accidentally switched Liam's information with that of other applicants. One application reviewer noticed Liam's background and commented on his substantial debt. Everyone laughed, as there were always underprivileged applicants seeking their chances. Some suggested rejecting Liam's application, but Randolph mentioned that they had already received gifts. Suddenly, they discovered another applicant who had accomplished incredible feats. This applicant had taken control of their house as a 5-year-old child, revitalized their territory, received imperial rewards for pirate extermination, and even purchased Dreadnought-class battleships. The Petak house left everyone in amazement. Randolph suggested that the best way to strengthen their relationship was by marrying his daughter to them. The guide eagerly anticipated Liam's reaction. At the Razel House spaceport, people talked about House Petak's generosity. They sent lots of gifts to make sure the children felt comfortable during their stay. There were also rare minerals and a brand new model spaceship for transport, which surprised everyone. On the other hand, the ships from House Banfield didn't bring any gifts, and they also made the Razel household pay for maintenance costs. Naturally, this disappointed everyone. Little did they know, it was part of the guide's evil plan. Peter Sarah Petak, another trainee, arrived at the spaceport. Randolph greeted him with arrogance because Peter was getting special treatment. Peter ordered the servants to take him to his room, and this made Randolph step in to guide him properly. Bystanders were surprised by Peter's boldness and how he behaved shamelessly in another noble's house. While Randolph was guiding Peter, he offered to introduce him to his daughter. Peter asked about her looks, and Randolph said she was very beautiful. Randolph had cunning intentions. He wanted to see what kind of person Peter was. He planned to arrange a marriage between his daughter and Peter, hoping to control him for his own benefit. Meanwhile, Liam found himself taken to a room that looked like a place for servants. It was very different from the luxury he had expected. The instructor told them that their training would happen in these humble surroundings and told them to get ready. Many members were unhappy about this, but the instructor reminded them that they were trainees and had to follow the rules. They changed into their training clothes and were told to meet at the training grounds. Liam was disappointed because his initial thoughts of a luxurious life were shattered. Even Brian donated his prized bonsai plant, which was the best he had. His plant had won many competitions, so he told Liam not to worry about the Razel household not liking it. Liam realized that Brian was right and that the Razel household was providing proper live-in training. He couldn't help but think highly of Randolph despite his own bad reputation. The instructor asked them to get ready because their training would start with a daily routine of running a lap. This would continue throughout their training. To Liam's surprise, his roommate turned out to be Kurt Sarah Exnar, a baron. Liam felt better because he outranked Kurt, but Kurt ignored him, making Liam dislike him even more. Time passed quickly, and a month went by with physical training and working as household staff. Liam found the training too easy compared to his tough swordsmanship practices back home. He didn't have to deal with administrative tasks or meetings, which made him bored. During one of these dull moments, Ella, a new friend, encouraged him to take his duties seriously. They heard laughter outside, where Randolph's daughter Katerina and Peter enjoyed their training activities. Unlike the other trainees covered in sweat and mud, Katerina and Peter seemed to genuinely enjoy what they were doing. Ella told Liam how Peter had taken control of his territory and gotten a sword license at a young age. He was known as a kind ruler, loved by his people. There were high expectations for his future because of his many achievements. When Liam heard this, he became convinced that Peter was just like him. Liam had also built up his territory from a young age and gotten a sword license. However, the big difference in their reputations confused Liam. He thought Randolph had found out about his bad deeds back in his territory, which explained why people didn't like him. Ella understood Liam's worries and told him that everyone in their group faced similar problems. Liam wondered why someone like Ella was with him. She explained that she was just a third daughter, and it was in her best interest to finish her training and make good connections with a powerful family. This would help her brother, who was going to inherit their family's wealth. It wasn't a pleasant topic, but it was common among nobles. Liam felt bad for her situation. As Ella talked, Liam thought that everyone who was treated poorly probably had their own problems. They were all treated the same way as him, and he believed they were his fellow allies among the disliked lords. So, Liam thought it was a good idea to make friends within the group. Ella then asked about Kurt and suggested that Liam befriend him since they shared a living space. However, Liam didn't like Kurt because he was always ignoring him. Ella tried to convince Liam to reconsider, saying it would be better if they got along. Liam stubbornly said he would only befriend Kurt if he humbled himself. Ella playfully called Liam self-centered, and Liam found Ella a bit strange. The next day, the instructor announced a martial arts sparring session and told everyone to be careful. Each trainee had to pick a weapon and partner with their roommates. Liam and Kurt chose similar swords, but Kurt's had 2 edges, while Liam's had 1. Kurt warned Liam that he couldn't hold back, and Liam confidently mentioned his mastery of the one-flash technique. Kurt didn't know about the technique and suggested backing out, but both of them were determined to face each other. When the instructor signaled the start of the match, Liam and Kurt began a fierce duel. They both got pushed back by the force of their attacks. Liam was surprised by how well Kurt could withstand his blows, and everyone watching was impressed too. Kurt humbly apologized for underestimating Liam's sword skills and acknowledged the one-flash technique. They both took a moment to study each other's moves. The instructor saw them lose focus and scolded them, reminding them to concentrate on the fight. Ella, watching from the side, chuckled in a mysterious way. After the sparring session, Kurt took a bath to cool down. He used to think that people who only relied on their wealth lacked real skills. Kurt's father had become a noble because of his abilities. Kurt had been seriously training in swordsmanship since birth and had obtained his license. He didn't want to become arrogant, but he felt he had become a bit overconfident. During a sparring match, Liam launched a strong attack that Kurt could barely block. Kurt used to think it was just a regular training session, but he now believed he could learn a thing or two from Liam. Later, as Kurt entered a room, he heard Liam laughing in an evil way. Liam was laughing because he found out that House Exner was imposing a very high tax rate of 60%, which he considered extremely wicked. Kurt explained that House Exner was a new noble house and lacked experience in managing a territory and dealing with the people. Kurt had come to House Razel to learn management, but he found the training to be similar to that of any other house. He mentioned that they were planning to start training for natural satellite resource development the next year, but without a proper understanding of the basics, ruling effectively was challenging. Hearing Kurt's situation, Liam agreed that House Razel wasn't the best place for training. Despite this, Kurt was determined to put in an effort for his parents' sake. Liam decided to help Kurt by teaching him about taxes and how to deal with the populace. Kurt was taken aback by the sudden development. Liam suggested reducing the taxes to avoid hindering development. Liam really liked the way House Exner was squeezing money out of people, but poor Liam didn't know that it was the standard tax method in the Empire. He believed that alliances between cunning lords were crucial and wanted to get along with Kurt. Liam recommended extorting from the rich rather than the poor. He also advised Kurt to flatten the palace to cut costs, which Kurt believed to be troublesome. Liam shouted at him to manage with that so he could reap the benefits later. He also emphasized the importance of having full control over the military. Kurt was amazed to know how everything in Liam's territory was in order. The territory given to Kurt's father was poor, and the empire still sought taxes from it. The household and the people were experiencing unspeakable hardships because of that. With no fame to their name as they were new nobles, no one was willing to help them in their surroundings. But now he had hope. He thought that it would be meaningless to consult with others, but he believed that Liam could solve it. Liam asked Kurt to reform his military and buy new ships that cost less to maintain than worn-out battleships with high maintenance costs. When Kurt lamented about the lack of money to buy the new ships, Liam offered to help Kurt borrow money through his trusted private merchant, Thomas. Kurt worried about the debt affecting Liam, but Liam didn't consider money important and valued the friendship with Kurt's family, whom he believed to be fellow unconventional individuals. Kurt mistook Liam's talk of evil as a reflection of his strong conviction and aspired to be like him. They became friends, and Kurt discussed things with his father while Liam contacted Thomas. The following day, Ella felt really happy to see Liam and Kurt getting along well. Liam admitted he was wrong about Kurt the whole time, and Ella was satisfied as long as they got along. Liam asked if Ella needed any help, and she mentioned she didn't know much about managing her household, but she was okay as long as she married someone from a similar social status. Liam suggested that she marry Kurt, but Ella declined, saying it wasn't a good choice and her family should make that decision. Liam was concerned for her, but she thought it was unnecessary. Meanwhile, in a nearby corridor, Razel's daughter Katerina was having an affair with someone. Ella and Liam accidentally overheard them. Ella remarked that it was daring of them to do such things when Katerina was supposed to be engaged to Peter. Liam wondered if all the girls were like that, thinking Katerina was assertive. Ella agreed that most marriages were based on agreements, and some people might have multiple partners. Liam agreed, believing that people couldn't marry for love alone. However, Ella disagreed, saying there were cases where marriages were based on love, and she believed love could conquer anything. Ella reminded Liam that they had to hurry because they were already late for work. Liam mentioned that there were troublemakers causing problems the day before, and the number of such incidents had been increasing. He believed that if their lord was a noble person, there would be no way to put an end to the crimes. The only way to stop it was to become evil itself. He lamented about the fact that Peter didn't understand. During a meal, Kurt and Liam were discussing the natural satellite resource development training they would start soon, involving hard labor for a year. Liam thought it was still better than working as servants in the mansion, since labor training would also enable them to learn more about piloting mobile knights, which was more beneficial. Kurt appreciated Liam's advice and considered meeting him a miracle. Suddenly, Ella came and greeted them cheerfully. When they asked why she was cheerful, Ella invited them to join her for natural resource development training in a nearby system as a group. Kurt and Liam agreed, and they decided to form a group for the training. Meanwhile, Katerina was walking through the mansion and overheard a commotion. She wondered if Peter was fooling around with other girls again. She didn't like the idea of being with someone like Peter, even if it benefited her family. She had heard that Peter had obtained the sword school license, but he had used a lot of excuses to abstain from the matches. She also heard that he revitalized his territory after taking over as a lord, but she had doubts about the truth of these rumors. Liam and the others were preparing for work on a spaceship. Liam was unhappy with the sweaty suits they had to wear. Kurt saw it as a way to understand the workers' hardships, and Ella disliked using things that smelled like others. The instructor had told them to stop complaining because the training was meant to show them the challenges of working in extreme environments. Kurt believed the training would help them manage work more efficiently and save money. Ella thought it would be better to avoid such work if it caused business losses. On the other hand, Liam had a different opinion. He blamed House Razel for the situation, saying it was the responsibility of higher-ups to make profits and implement changes, and he saw it as an excuse to cover up negligence. He felt it was a waste of time considering his wealth. Even when the instructor glared at him, Liam still refused to change his opinion. He remembered his previous workplace, where if someone failed at a task, they were asked to work harder. When they succeeded, the credit went to the boss and ideas that cost too much were dismissed, even if they could bring profits in the long term. Liam wished he could tell his past self to quit if his work wasn't appreciated. They were deployed on an asteroid, and Liam found the new machine easy to control compared to the old one. Kurt and Ella seemed to be doing well too. The instructor acknowledged Liam's skills and asked him to help with his work. They joked around and became friendly after their regular training. Kurt marveled at Liam's tough childhood training, but Liam considered it easy compared to his master's. Kurt wished to meet Liam's master, whom he considered a great person. Ella joined them and suggested taking a group photo. Liam asked Ella to take her hands off as he was sweaty, but Ella didn't mind as she was going to take a bath soon. They took many photos, and Ella left the place. Kurt admired Ella's cheerful nature, which Liam agreed with. Liam felt that there was no point in his training there, but he was happy to meet Kurt and Ella. Liam wanted to share his experience with Amagi, but immediately realized he had forgotten to make the regular call. When he contacted Amagi, she asked why he hadn't kept in touch as agreed. Liam explained he had been busy, and Amagi reassured him it was okay as long as he was fine. Brian asked Liam about his life there, and Liam mentioned the lack of tedious work and doing training on his own. Brian was pleased to hear Liam was doing well. When Brian questioned Liam about wearing a training uniform, Liam mentioned that it was his regular daily outfit, which totally shocked Brian. Liam asked about their territory developments, immigrant plans, and military reconstruction. Amagi reported that everything was progressing well, and inquired what Liam meant by that being his daily outfit. When Liam explained he was doing mining work on one of House Raisel's resource asteroids, Brian was shocked to learn they made him do manual labor, which they justified as necessary training to learn the hardships of workers. When Kurt reminded Liam that their meeting time had ended, Liam said goodbye and ended the call. After Liam hung up, Brian expressed concern about Liam's well-being. He mentioned that Liam had already ended the call. Brian was upset with how Liam was treated, even after they had sent excessive resources to the Raisel household. Brian decided to travel there to investigate the mistreatment of Liam and vowed never to forgive the Raisel household for treating Liam like a laborer. Amagi agreed with Brian and started gathering information about them. However, she was still happy that Liam had made some friends, and Brian also agreed with that, but it wasn't a reason to forgive House Raisel. On the other hand, Kurt was worried about fanatics. Kurt's father, a famous knight, had a lot of fans, and among them were some extreme fans. It was normal that being an ace or a named knight would make them popular across the empire. Liam was amused to learn that Kurt's father was that famous. Kurt mentioned that some secretly took private pictures of his father, causing a ruckus in his territory. Even his own photos had been circulating, which increased Kurt's worry. Liam found this fascinating and thought Kurt's surroundings resembled those of an idol. That's when Liam got a new idea. He suggested improving security and legally selling their images to profit from it. As someone breaking through their security to take a simple photo meant it was worth it. It was a simple way to earn a profit. Liam believed that rather than some bootleg and knockoff, a well-taken and legal image would sell for more. Though the sneak photos would sell for more, it was still a good plan. Kurt liked the idea and thanked Liam, planning to discuss it with his father. Still, Liam asked Kurt to be careful of some loyal subordinates, as high loyalty could be a problem too. Ella laughed at their interactions. She suggested Liam eat vegetables, and he gave them to Kurt because they were too bitter. Kurt dared Liam to consider eating bitter vegetables, but Liam was adamant about not eating them. Suddenly, they heard a weird laugh, but they couldn't find the source and dismissed it. They thought they were imagining things, but Ella was the one who left like that. She watched them get along and got so ecstatic that she almost let her voice out. She felt that it was too soon and wanted to watch more of such moments. Meanwhile, outside the territory, Yasushi wandered around, trying to avoid Liam and running low on money. He was rejected for a job due to not having the required license, even though he had a lot of experience. Hungry and desperate, he had sold all his possessions. When he was looking at the cafeteria and thinking about how hungry he was, a thug hit his shoulder and he fell down. He acted having his shoulder broken from that light impact and demanding monetary compensation for the treatment. For Yasushi, the thug threatened to kill him if he didn't pay the money for it. That's when Liam was standing behind the thug and asked him who was daring enough to kill his almighty master. Liam was glad to meet his master after a long time. Yasushi wondered why Liam was there. He thought Liam might be angry for lying to him and came to harm him. Without much time to think, Yasushi wanted to run away quickly. A thug asked if Liam was Yasushi's friend when he saw Liam carrying a sword that was known as a toy in the intergalactic nations. He pulled out a gun to play with Liam, but our boy swiftly used his one-flash technique and defeated them all. Yasushi realized that running away from Liam was no longer an option because Liam had become much stronger than before. Liam approached Yasushi, knelt down, and greeted him. He talked about how hard he had worked to improve his skills. Yasushi pretended to notice Liam's improved swordsmanship, even though he had sold his sword and was now looking for jobs. Yasushi made up a story about traveling with only the clothes on his back and seeking disciples who could master the way of the Flash. Liam suggested starting a dojo in his territory, but Yasushi declined, fearing being caught. He claimed he was looking for students who could master the Flash rather than just ordinary students. Liam felt that one Flash was already perfect, but Yasushi disagreed, saying the path of the warrior had no end and one must strive to improve continually. Liam asked for forgiveness and permission to assist Yasushi in finding his own students. Yasushi explained that every practitioner of one Flash needed to have at least 3 disciples. Since Liam was his first disciple, he needed to find 2 more. Yasushi asked Liam to do the same. They had their own unique swordsmanship styles, and there might be a chance to combine them in the future, but not now, as they needed to keep improving. Liam admired Yasushi's wisdom and asked for forgiveness. Liam couldn't send his master off empty-handed, so he gave him some travel funds, which Yasushi gratefully accepted. While they were talking, a guard arrived and questioned them about the incident. Liam asked Yasushi to leave it to him and left the scene. The guard found the dead bodies and arrested Liam. He couldn't stop thinking about Yasushi's words and decided to start looking for his own disciples. Liam aspired to become an evil lord but wanted to follow in his master's footsteps. Lost in thought, Liam's instructor remarked on his habit of talking to himself. When news of the murder reached him, the instructor was surprised and Liam apologized for his insincerity. The victims were infamous figures, but their ability to evade capture until now was a mystery. Despite understanding Liam's emotions, the instructor conveyed Viscount Rozel's message that Liam must spend time in jail to cool off. Liam accepted the sentence and contemplated ways to gain disciples. The Rozel territory, unknown to many, served as the main base for a notorious pirate group. Liam's actions had incurred their wrath, especially since 3 of their comrades were killed. One pirate urged their leader to seek revenge on Liam, but the leader was concerned about the lack of information on Liam and the potential consequences of targeting a nobleman like him. Another pirate had mentioned a VIP debtor from the Pitak household who was also a noble. It was Peter. He suggested using Peter because he already owed them a significant debt. The leader ordered the crew to gather as much information as possible about Liam. The leader was determined to take revenge and swore to make the noble regret crossing their path at Rozel's household. Meanwhile, Randolph was teaching a management class to the privileged students. He talked about the importance of coexisting with pirates and believed that it was impossible to eliminate them completely. He mentioned that pirates were a result of governance issues and suggested controlling the underworld in their territory to develop their planet. One student raised doubts about these lessons, arguing that it went against the duty of nobles to protect their territory and people. Randolph criticized the students for having such moral ideals and insisted that they sometimes needed to get their hands dirty. Peter chimed in, revealing that his household was already involved in such activities. This surprised Randolph but also pleased him, as it meant both houses had a similar mindset, fostering a prosperous relationship. Randolph continued to stress the importance of building relationships and balancing power when dealing with pirates. These lessons were leading the students, including Peter, down a dangerous path. In a concealed black casino in Viscount Rozel's territory, Peter found himself engaged in a card game. Unfortunately, he kept losing and grew frustrated. He asked the host to add the money to his tab, as he always did. However, a man in a suit approached Peter and asked him to settle his debts. Peter refused, suggesting he ask Viscount Rozel instead. The man warned Peter that this could harm his reputation and made a proposition. He offered to settle Peter's substantial debt in exchange for information. Without much thought, Peter agreed. He received an image of Liam's face but pretended not to know him. The man then mentioned Liam's association with the Rozel house, but Peter brushed it off, assuming Liam was insignificant. Amused by Peter's response, the man promised special services in exchange for more details about Liam. With a snap of his fingers, attractive women surrounded Peter, and he eagerly agreed to cooperate, promising to reveal everything. The man in the suit was pleased with Peter's enthusiasm. After some time, Liam was pardoned and attended the class. Since the training had gone on for a while, the instructor planned to take them to a pub for some fun. Liam and Kurt joined other cadets at a pub near the outskirts. Liam was disappointed because he had expected to visit establishments with beautiful girls. Kurt felt uncomfortable discussing girls in Ella's presence, but Liam blamed Ella for coming with them. Ella, however, didn't mind such conversations, which relieved Kurt. Liam enjoyed the skewers and asked for more. Ella asked Liam about his idea of having fun, and Kurt nearly choked on his beer in response. Liam was oblivious to Kurt's discomfort, and Ella scolded him for not knowing any better. Liam asked for Kurt's opinion, and he was flustered by the topic but agreed with Liam's perspective. Liam thought that fulfilling basic human desires such as eating, sleeping, and sex was essential, and Kurt agreed. Liam used to think that his failure in his previous life happened because he worked too much, didn't have fun, and put family first. But now he had a new perspective. He realized the importance of pursuing worldly desires and felt it was the duty of a noble to create places where his loyal subjects could enjoy themselves. Liam planned to build such a place on his planet, which would also bring in profits. A lady who overheard their conversation encouraged them not to be too proper and to enjoy life while they were still young. She left after speaking and Liam wanted to tip her. However, she suggested he order more instead. So Liam ordered more drinks for everyone in the pub. He and the lady shared a weird laugh. Kurt explained that Liam was still lacking in some way. Liam was happy Kurt was learning to turn people's desires into profits. Then, Liam asked Kurt about his experiences with a certain deed. Kurt was taken aback and spilled his drink. Liam pressed him to answer, believing it was possible for nobles. Kurt argued against it, saying he needed to be faithful to his future fiancée. Liam didn't trust the word faithful much in this world. Kurt asked if Liam had any experience, and Liam admitted he hadn't. They both realized they were in the same boat. Liam decided on a new target, visiting the entertainment district. He persuaded Kurt to go with him, as no one knew about their plans. However, Ella advised them to postpone it, expressing concern for their futures. When she mentioned the risk of a disease that could make men's genitals explode, they decided to follow her warning and go home. They learned a valuable lesson about caution and responsibility. Ella reminded them to be grateful for her warning. Liam took his training more seriously after hearing about the strange infection that could cause such a gruesome outcome. He was frustrated about the fixed exhibition matches they had to participate in. He suspected that Randolph's retainers were planning these matches without Randolph's knowledge to please him. Liam and Kurt both refused to lose, but Kurt suggested a match against Peter, as they both held Aelin School sword-style licenses. Liam doubted Peter's strength and questioned the validity of his license, as he believed it should only be granted to those who truly mastered swordsmanship. Kurt didn't want to start a rumor, but he explained that Peter had probably bought something with money. Liam was shocked to hear that Ella had asked him not to be too serious about famous schools. Famous schools usually sell their master's licenses to people with high social status. Liam thought it was a good idea because it would advertise their name, but at the same time their swordsmanship lineage would suffer without the ability to pass on their skills to future generations. Kurt mentioned that he and his father had also obtained a license in the same way, and it had cost them a lot. Liam felt that the whole system was corrupt. He thought about Yasushi, who didn't ask for anything like the others. Liam felt grateful to Yasushi for giving him such a master, so he decided to pray for him. That's when Peter and his fiancée Katerina arrived and ridiculed them for being commoners. Liam asked them directly about their business with them. Peter, who looked down on Liam due to his family's financial situation, mocked him and invited them to his favorite casino. All three of them declined for various reasons, which made Peter mad. He drew his sword and threatened them, and Kurt asked him to put it away when Katerina shouted at him not to start a fight on the mansion grounds. Peter attacked them in the name of punishment, but Katerina stopped him. Weak as Peter was, he stumbled and hit his head on a stone. Liam teased him for that, even though he held a license. Katerina called a doctor, and Peter blamed Liam, vowing revenge. The guide floated above them and observed the dispute between Liam and Peter. He bled again as Liam's gratitude reached him. Liam became so powerful that the guide, who was turning extremely weak, couldn't change Liam's fate much. His power was greatly diminished, making it impossible for him to travel between worlds. Liam seemed unbeatable, frustrating the guide. The guide wondered how to make Liam unhappy. He knew that a band of pirates was targeting Liam, but they were weaker than Goaz's fleet. He then noticed that someone was contacting Randolph about a sinister plan. Later on, Randolph refused to harm a noble's son under their care in the past. The pirates insisted that their group's reputation was at stake, and they couldn't afford to be mocked by other pirates in the area. Randolph couldn't believe they were asking him to sacrifice his reputation for theirs. The pirate assured him that his reputation wouldn't suffer and mentioned their indebtedness to him. Randolph inquired about their plan. The pirate explained his group intended to attack Liam as soon as he left the Razel Viscounty. Randolph hesitated briefly and decided not to assist the pirates, planning to arrive late to aid Banfield House instead. The pirate was fine with Randolph's decision but wanted Peter to join since he offered help too. Randolph was worriedly surprised. The pirate mentioned that Peter held grudges against Liam and promised to provide some battleships. Peter fell silent as he recalled Katerina telling him about the feud between the two. He considered the matter trivial and thought it might affect their planned engagement. He agreed with the pirates' plans with the exception of using House Petak's ships in battle. He insisted they use only pirate ships. The pirate misunderstood Randolph's words, thinking he wanted House Petak's ships disguised as pirate vessels. The pirate concurred with Randolph, claiming that House Banfield was a low-ranking house, and the Empire wouldn't make a fuss if they fell to a pirate attack. Randolph reminded him to avoid leaving any evidence just in case, and the pirate agreed, as they wished to maintain their business relationship. After the call ended, Randolph checked the guest list for the upcoming party. Seeing many merchants and imperial representatives, he felt thankful to House Petak, and decided to make the event grander than previous parties. He wanted to establish good relationships with the guests for Razel's future. He eagerly looked forward to what lay ahead. The guide outside wore a wide smile, seeing an interesting development unfolding. The combined forces of the pirates, House Petak, and House Razel would be sufficient to take down House Banfield's ships. He opened a portal and left, confident that Liam would meet his end. The spirit of Liam's dog from his previous life witnessed everything and departed. Everyone within House Razel's territory has been informed about the upcoming important guests. Liam observed that everyone was putting in their best efforts, and Kurt explained that the party would be grand because many of House Petak's guests would attend, and the engagement between House Razel and House Petak would be announced. Liam noticed the arena where trainees would showcase their swordsmanship. Kurt felt disappointed since Liam wouldn't be participating. Liam stated that intentionally losing in a fixed match would be humiliating for a license holder like him. Kurt was saddened that everything would conclude after the match and party. Liam assured him that the real action would start afterward. Kurt agreed but was suddenly called away by his family. Liam had been left alone and noticed a dog in a hazardous area. Worried for its safety, he tried to rescue it and ended up chasing it until it disappeared from sight. He then overheard Kurt's conversation in a nearby room about pirate attacks. Soon after, Kurt returned, and Liam confessed that he overheard everything while chasing the dog. Kurt explained that pirates were using their resource satellite as their base and it would be challenging to subdue them. Liam grinned and offered to join the pirate extermination. Kurt was concerned due to the pirates' high numbers, but Liam considered them his walking piggy bank. Kurt was puzzled by Liam's words, and Liam proposed a 7-3 split of the spoils between House Banfield and House Exner. After settling matters in House Razel, Liam promised to assist Kurt in returning to his house and using his vessels to combat the pirates together. Kurt halted Liam and expressed his concern about consulting with his household first. He worried about causing trouble with House Banfield. Liam confidently stated that his word held absolute authority in his household, and playfully punched Kurt's chest, declaring that pirate hunting would be fun. A girl was eavesdropping on the two boys with a smile from the sidelines. She could envision their adventures in pirate hunting. Isla, who has a passion for BL or boys' love, has been glad she followed them and decided to continue observing their interactions. Liam suddenly sensed someone suspicious passing by and asked if anyone had seen a dog. Isla feigned innocence and changed the topic, urging them to focus on their work. Liam wondered if she spotted the dog, and Kurt also mentioned feeling watched from time to time. Isla brushed it off as a discussion about ghosts and told them to stop when their instructor appeared. Later, Isla met up with Liam and confessed that she overheard his conversation with Kurt. She expressed her desire to join them. Liam looked confused, and Isla explained that she had a lot on her plate. Liam assumed that Isla had a liking for Kurt. He agreed to consult with Kurt and arrange a meeting, all in the spirit of camaraderie among evil lords. Meanwhile, Kurt has been reflecting on their training and education. He felt a sense of sadness at the thought of returning home alone after Liam helped him so much. Just then, Liam appeared and informed Kurt about Ayla's desire to tag along. Kurt has been fine with it but worried about his family's unpreparedness to welcome guests. Liam suggested sending Isla to House Banfield instead, and Kurt agreed. Back at House Banfield, Brian has been on a video call with a woman named Selena, the retired head maid of the Imperial Palace. She retired and suggested Brian leave his work, but he remained loyal to House Banfield. Selena was surprised to hear that Liam was training at House Banfield, and regretted not being informed earlier, thinking she could have recommended a better house with fewer problems. Shortly after, a set of exhibition matches took place for entertainment. A few chosen parents were invited, and the matches were set up for their children to win. A student stood nervously in front of Peter, who kept showing off his moves and sword skills. Liam couldn't believe someone would give up against such an odd move. Isla wondered what the person who gave Peter the license was thinking. As expected, Peter's opponent gave up. Peter celebrated in front of everyone and even stomped on his opponent's head. Suddenly, he got an idea and challenged Liam to a match, insulting Liam's sword style. The audience got excited. Liam's teacher felt uneasy about the situation, but Liam wondered if he could fight seriously. The teacher knew he couldn't stop Liam, even if he tried. He was also tired of the show being put on for the audience and asked Liam not to seriously harm Peter. Liam assured him not to worry, as he had a plan for holding back. The teacher was confused, and Liam pulled out a toy hammer. Liam said it would be enough to not seriously harm Peter with it. Peter laughed at Liam for not being able to afford a sword. The two squared off in the arena, with Liam's friends watching anxiously. The match started, and in just a second Peter's head was on the ground. The whole place fell silent. Everyone was baffled because they didn't see what happened. Randolph ordered his men to attend to Peter. It was declared that Liam was the winner. The other trainees started accusing Liam of cheating. Liam called them spoiled and challenged them to face him all at once. Some trainees jumped into the arena, but Liam quickly dealt with them. He declared he wouldn't lose to those who only won through fixed matches. Afterward, Liam's teacher complained to Randolph about how Liam was treated. Randolph brushed it off, saying Liam had already upset other houses. He didn't want more trouble, especially with his daughter's engagement at stake. While discussing getting rid of Liam as soon as possible, Peter noticed a bonsai plant and wondered who sent it. Randolph said it was from House Petak, but Peter insisted his house wouldn't send such a useless gift. Randolph was surprised but said he'd have it thrown away since it was included in a mix-up. In the end, Liam's teacher told him he couldn't save him. Liam was okay with it, knowing Randolph didn't value their vassals much. The teacher reminded Liam that he was a vassal of House Razel. Liam didn't care, and invited the teacher to join his territory instead. The teacher laughed it off, saying he should stay with the house since he owed them. Liam thought it was a shame that the teacher refused. Out of guilt, the teacher provided Liam with a meal and some money. Liam was sarcastically grateful. The teacher told him to clean up after eating, but Liam said his ride was already waiting. Liam then noticed the bonsai plant, and the teacher said it was going to be thrown away. Liam asked if he could take it with him, and the teacher agreed before leaving. Liam remembered how Brian cherished the bonsai plant and couldn't believe its worth wasn't recognized. As he clenched his fists, Kurt and Isla showed up with their bags. Liam wondered where they were going since the party wasn't over. The two heard about Liam being kicked out and decided to leave. Liam smiled and told them their ride would be there soon. Meanwhile, at Roselle Viscounty's spaceport, Tia instructed the others to decorate the area since it had been a while since they'd seen her lord. The others tried to stop her, but Tia insisted on doing it. The spaceport staff suggested she do it on their homeworld. People were talking about the impressive Dreadnought-class ship and how House Petak was remarkable. Tia and the others were taken aback, and Tia quickly confronted anyone who made the mistake. She was upset that their proud crest was being confused with another house. While Tia and the others were dealing with the staff, they received a video call from Liam, who was visibly annoyed. He wondered why no one was there to pick him up. Liam scolded Tia and the others while his friends watched. He ended the call and let out a huge sigh. Kurt wondered what had happened, and Liam explained that his ships had been taken to a different area. Just then, Thomas came running in to meet Liam, and Liam was happy to see him. Thomas had been looking for Liam at the party until he heard that Liam was kicked out of it. Liam said that Randolph didn't like him, and the feeling was mutual. Thomas suddenly got nervous seeing Liam's expression. Two women then came running into the room. Elisha had heard that Liam was using the Dreadnought battleship he bought from them. Neas was trying to sell their Fortress-class battleship. Elisha tried to explain the details about the ship they were about to ride, but Liam responded in a cold way. Neas laughed at Elisha and claimed that Liam was someone who couldn't be easily charmed. Everyone had different reactions to Neas's disheveled appearance. Elisha told her about her clothes, and Neas explained that she couldn't afford better clothes for her health, not because of her pay cut. Isla felt bad upon hearing that. Neas bowed down on the floor and told Liam that she was having a hard time selling. Liam then asked for the price of the Fortress-class vessel, and Neas was happy to hear that. She also started offering to sell their factory's destroyers and cruisers, and Liam easily agreed to buy 300 of them. Eurasia tried to pitch in, but Liam didn't want to buy more stuff. Neas couldn't help but mock Elisha, and the two argued. Just then, there were loud footsteps, and Tia came into the room by doing a sliding dojiza. She tried to explain the situation, but Liam flicked her forehead and exclaimed not to make any excuses. Tia suddenly fell silent and offered her head as an apology. Liam flicked her again and called her an idiot. He told her to hurry up and carry all their luggage. He reminded them to be careful with the bonsai plant. Tia wondered if they were being forgiven since they knew Liam wouldn't easily forgive them. Liam corrected her that he would make them work to death once they boarded the vessel. Tia was stunned for a while and suddenly changed her expression. He wondered where the ship was, and a huge flagship appeared outside the window. Soon after, Kurt and the others were provided with amenities. Liam wondered what made Kurt fidgety. Kurt was just fascinated by the interiors of a Dreadnought-class vessel. Liam told Kurt to buy one, but Kurt's family couldn't afford it. His family found destroyers and cruisers more practical to use. Liam recalled doing impulsive buying before and remembered the surplus they had. He offered them to Kurt, who was shocked by the offer. Kurt tried to refuse, but Liam really wanted to get some of the vessels off his hands. Kurt didn't have a choice but to accept them. He was glad to receive them despite being used and outdated. However, he didn't know that they were brand new. Liam then asked Tia about the pirate fleet on House Exner's territory. Tia reported that the pirate fleet had 3,000 vessels and was currently occupying a spaceport-like structure. Liam was glad to know that and assumed that they had treasures. Seeing Kurt nervous, Liam told him not to worry and that House Exner would get 30% of the spoils as promised. Kurt was not worried about that and wondered why Liam was not nervous. He reminded Kurt that pirates were his walking piggy banks. They were his resources that kept giving away treasures and fame after he cleaned them up. Suddenly, Tia jumped into him and excitedly asked to be the vanguard. Liam glared at her and claimed that he would decide everything. Tia apologized and knelt on the floor. Just then, a report arrived that they detected the enemy fleet with about 20,000 vessels. It was confirmed that it was not only pirates but also vessels with noble crests were mixed in. Everyone suddenly got busy. Kurt wondered why there were pirates as soon as they left Viscount Razel's territory. Liam didn't mind the predicament and calmly claimed that they could just clean them up. Based on the radar information, Liam could see that they were being boxed in. Kurt was worried since Liam only brought 300 vessels with him. Liam was still calm and confirmed with Tia that the main force composed of 15,000 was nearby. The main force then attacked the enemy's rear line. Liam then commenced the attack on the front lines, and his vessel's attacks easily crushed the enemy ships. Kurt was impressed to see the enemies get wiped out in seconds. 3,000 enemy vessels suddenly charged toward them. Despite Kurt's worries and panic, Liam ordered his men to charge forward. Tia suddenly got excited and raised her sword. Kurt reminded Liam that the situation was dangerous. However, Liam didn't mind the numbers since he got the most advanced ships available. He also had the elites of elites who received rigorous training. He was confident that his military powers were above others. He knew he wouldn't lose since the guide was with him. The guide mentioned was coughing up blood from all the gratitude he was getting from Liam. He couldn't believe Liam brought a lot of vessels just to pick himself up. The guide silently cried as his plan failed. He used the last of his powers to make this situation happen, but it was all ruined now. Meanwhile, the pirate leader couldn't believe they received fake intel. He couldn't believe a house from the boonies got a monster ship like a super dreadnought. Their attacks couldn't get through the shields of Liam's fleet. Just then, a report came that House Petak's vessels were breaking away and escaping for their lives. He couldn't believe they fell easily when they were supposed to have state-of-the-art ships. The captain suddenly fell silent and decided to get out of the situation. Liam received a report that most enemies were crushed and some were distancing. Kurt was amazed by Liam's fleet, and Liam could only smirk. Tia then reported that the crests on the noble enemy ships were from House Petak. They also sent a communication signal and Liam let them get through. Peter II, the commander of their fleet, expressed their surrender. Kurt knew it would be troublesome to continue and assumed that Liam would accept their surrender. However, Liam claimed that they don't look like nobles in his eyes. He claimed House Petak was a virtuous noble house and wouldn't play pirates. He concluded that they were pirates playing as nobles. He decided not to accept their surrender. Kurt glanced to the side and saw Tia gasping in pleasure. Liam commanded his men to keep attacking. He then remembered those who had escaped and chose to follow them to their hideouts. Kurt felt anxious because the enemy were fellow aristocrats. With a calm look, Liam assured Kurt that they would head to the Exnar territory. Feeling tired, Liam decided to rest in his room. He asked Kurt about his plans, and Kurt decided to stay and observe what would unfold. He recalled how Liam had spoken about the power of his words. He realized that Liam had been truthful. Unlike Kurt, Liam didn't waver in front of another noble house like House Petak. As an aristocrat, Liam held firm to his beliefs. Meanwhile, Nias kept wondering if the vessel's shelter was truly secure. Eulalia exclaimed that they had thoroughly tested everything. She pointed out that Nias's 7th factory couldn't even compete with them. Nias then mentioned that their factory always cut corners with their prices, which is why Liam had distanced himself. Eulalia countered that it was because she hadn't dressed well this time. While the two were locked in fierce competition, Isla wondered about the kind of woman Liam preferred. She was curious, and her eyes sparkled with interest. Eulalia then remembered Isla's noble status and thought it might be difficult for her to pursue Liam. She speculated whether Isla was aiming to become one of Liam's concubines, but Isla denied it. Eulalia assumed that Isla was interested in either Liam or Kurt, since she was looking at them with wide eyes. Isla denied it and clarified that she didn't dream of marrying either of them, as she was only a third daughter. The two saleswomen exchanged a look and sought confirmation once more. Isla firmly denied it again. Meanwhile, Randolph had just discovered that the records of Liam and Peter had been switched. He ordered his men to halt the attack, or House Razel would be in serious trouble. Just then a servant appeared and reported that the pirates had been defeated. House Petak was also asking for assistance, and some House Razel staff were already on the move. Randolph advised them not to take any action, but the servant reminded him that they were formally bound in a military alliance through the engagement. Suddenly a call from Katerina came through. She exclaimed that House Petak was completely different from what she had heard. The house had been visited by loan sharks who demanded that House Razel pay off some of House Petak's debts. She tried to reach out to Peter's parents, but they cut her off after telling her to settle the debts for them. And there was more. Peter had contracted a recent illness in the Razel Viscounty, and his situation had taken a turn for the worse. Upon hearing this, Randolph froze and fell from his seat. It finally dawned on him that his house Razel was no more. Shortly after, at Baron Exner's territory, Kurt's father apologized for involving Liam in bringing his son home to aid them against the pirates. Liam assured him not to worry, as he was also delivering supplies. The Baron expressed gratitude that Liam allowed Kurt to experience a battle firsthand. He then advised Liam that the pirates, although they started as a small group, had later absorbed many others to form a formidable fleet. However, it didn't concern Liam. Some of the remnants they had let escape earlier led them back to their hideout. Liam reassured the Baron that the pirates were not a serious threat. The Baron instructed his son to stay close to Liam and learn. After Kurt confirmed, they ended the call. Liam stood and told Tia that it was time to go. He boarded his mobile knight Avid and tested its hand movements. He was impressed with Nias's maintenance work. He then checked on Tia, who was already on her mobile knight called Nivan. She expressed her gratitude to Liam for providing such an impressive unit. Eulalia asked Tia if she had completed her training modules, and Tia confirmed that she had. However, Eulalia was more concerned about Tia's first battle, and she hadn't finished all the adjustments yet. But for Tia, it didn't matter. She was eager to serve her lord as a retainer. She was also excited to showcase the unit she had crafted on her own and prove her worth. Shortly after, Avid took off from the battleship and led the other mobile knights towards a satellite. Liam was impressed to see how the pirates had repurposed the resource satellite. Tia reported that there were multiple objects approaching them at high speed. Everyone was taken aback as rocks flew out from the satellite, but Liam was actually impressed. Liam understood the enemy's plan, to make them dodge the debris and be targeted by their optical weapons. However, that kind of plan was ineffective against Liam, and he effortlessly sliced the incoming debris in half. After this remarkable feat, Liam realized he had become rusty during his time at House Razel. He resolved to return to training after dealing with the pirates. More debris was aimed at Liam, but Avid's barrier provided ample protection. Meanwhile, Tia and the others were handling themselves adeptly, which pleased Liam. After destroying the remaining debris, Liam and the others regrouped to infiltrate the interior of the fortress. Tia reported that they would disable some of the weapon systems, and the landing forces would follow. Upon hearing this, Liam decided to join them. He wanted to be the first one to step inside with his Avid. Meanwhile, the pirate captain we saw before was murdered by the top boss. He was angered because the captain brought the infamous pirate hunter, who easily destroyed Goaz and his fleet. Just then, an underling came in to report a bad piece of news. Liam and his forces started attacking. Explosions are seen outside the fortress. Enemy mobile knights exploded one by one as Nivon destroyed them. Tia saw another enemy mobile knight and caught it. As the enemy cried for help, Tia laughed hysterically as she killed the enemy. Her heart was being soothed by hearing the pirates cry and beg for their lives. Two differently built mobile knights appeared to attack her, but Tia swiftly sliced them like butter, leaving nothing. She checked her progress. Seeing that she destroyed 30 mobile knights and 6 battleships, she realized how she was still far from Liam. On the other hand, explosions occurred as Liam and some of his men went through the passageways of the fortress. He asked Tia to come, but she decided to secure a route by removing some remaining external threats. The pirates tried to fight back with their artillery and mobile knights, but Liam told them that they were nowhere near for him to be his opponent. He then ordered Avid to activate a massive barrier. Its size was surprising for the pirates, and they got pushed to the walls by it. They begged Liam to stop, but the barrier smashed them flat into the walls. Liam claimed that it was just a normal barrier, but an over-specified one. His men were impressed by their lord's strength and proceeded to infiltrate. Liam then noticed something and flew off. Tia and some units went to join Liam. They arrive at an empty docking bay where multiple small mobile knights appear. They claimed Liam's Avid wouldn't be able to move in that small space. Liam was still calm and composed. He then asked Tia to show off the true extent of Nevin's abilities. Tia charged forward and brought out her sword, which easily sliced everything on its path. She also used firearms that could easily finish the small fries in a few shots. Seeing his comrades get destroyed one by one, the leader expressed his frustration with how Tia's unit can easily punch through their special armor platings and custom-made units. Tia felt bad and claimed that they were also using custom-made units based on the latest model used by the Imperial Army. She felt sorry for them but still crushed each one of them with Nivon. Enemies were being crushed and dropped like flies. Watching everything, Liam can't help but laugh hysterically and orders Tia to kill all of the pirates. The boss man was watching everything with a cold sweat. He can't believe seeing Liam's absurd strength, not only the units but also the pilots. Some underlings came to report that Liam was aiming for the command center. The bossman then started laughing out loud and called Liam and his men the best. He grabbed his necklace and removed the hanging object. It turned out to be a key to something, and the bossman exclaimed that he would send proper fireworks for the final act. He plans to drag down Liam's fleet along with his fortress by self-destructing. Liam suddenly received a communication signal. The bossman called Liam and called him the pirate hunter. He claimed that he just activated a self-destruct mechanism to blow the fortress and its surroundings to smithereens. He explained that their fortress was something used by the Imperial Army some decades ago, and after it was abandoned, they repurposed it to fit their needs. He was surprised at how the Imperial Army installed some scary features on the abandoned fortress. Liam wondered if that was all. He called the bossman a loser for choosing to self-destruct after all this time and didn't care at all about it. The bossman told Liam not to act tough since it would end badly for him. Liam declared that it would be the end of the pirates, not him. Liam then called Nias, and she started looking for the fortress blueprint. She claimed that this was an easy task for her. It only took a minute, and Nias sent it over to Liam. The blueprint showed a bomb that was made to imitate the likeness of a main star, making it dangerous. However, Nias was confident that Liam could destroy the bomb using Avid. Liam can't believe Nias was that useful. After getting mad, Nias cut off the communications, and Liam decided to get things over. He tried Avid's new feature, and a huge emblem appeared glowing behind the mobile knight. A cannon started charging while the system confirmed the range and location of the target. The system was done analyzing and was just waiting for the pilot's trigger response. Liam then held onto the trigger and the cannon was being prepared to fire. Liam claimed that the boss man was the one who would become the fireworks. Liam fired off the cannon, and a huge explosion surfaced from the fortress. The system confirmed that the target was destroyed, and Tia was impressed by Liam. However, Liam felt lame about it. He would normally be impressed by shooting beams. He then ordered the landing forces to gather so they could go treasure hunting. Everyone got off their mobile knights, and one of his men requested to say something. The knight claimed that they were far from done with the cleanup, and that going treasure hunting would be dangerous. However, Liam wanted to claim the treasures gathered by the pirates for himself. He hurried off on his own, but his men faithfully followed their lord. Liam searched through everything but hasn't discovered anything. Just then, one of his men discovered a safe box that contained a lot of cash. However, they were worthless for Liam. Another knight noticed a hidden passageway, and they opened it. Inside the hidden room, they discovered something that looked like a monument. They see petrified people of all ages and genders. Despite his soldiers' warnings, Liam continued running forward and discovered statues. However, he felt a real human presence from them. The soldiers also found the statues and called them creepy. Liam then ordered them to look for anything related to the statues. Later in Exner's barony, Kurt welcomed Liam and Isla to their mansion. Kurt claimed the mansion was reused from the previous administration and apologized for it being cramped. However, in Liam's eyes, it was huge. Isla didn't complain either. Suddenly, Liam had a realization. He assumed that Kurt's barony was not spending more than a count from the countryside despite being a high tax. He gave his approval to Kurt for being an evil lord. Just then, Kurt's servants came over and announced that the bath was ready. Kurt told Liam to take one first, and the servants asked Liam to follow them as they would attend to him. Liam became worried because he knew the servants would wash his back. Liam then suggested that Kurt should take a bath too since he was the homeowner. Liam's plan was to keep the servants busy with Kurt instead of him. Kurt wondered if it was all right. Isla agreed, saying it would strengthen their bond as men. The boys then left, and Isla wore a creepy smile. She started operating something, and a drone emerged from the nearby bushes. She used the drone to spy on the two boys enjoying the bath together. The sneaky Isla shrieked in joy seeing the boys close to each other. She claimed it was not a mistake to pair the two boys from the beginning. She found the pairing perfect. Her inner Fujoshi was delighted as she observed the boys sleeping and eating together. When it was time to go back home, Kurt anxiously bid farewell to Liam. Seeing the two boys connect, Isla cried tears of joy. Liam came back home and faced a predicament. His butler, Brian, was crying because Liam had requested to cancel all the welcome back parties for him. Liam exclaimed that a month-long celebration for his return was nonsense and suggested they just announce that he was back in the domain. Brian eventually agreed but suddenly questioned why Liam had returned with the bonsai. Liam claimed that House Rezal didn't recognize the true value of things. Suddenly Brian went silent and seriously asked what Liam had learned during his studies. Liam told him that nothing there was worth learning. However, he did learn many things he shouldn't do, and it was thanks to Kurt and Ayla that he enjoyed the past 3 years. Liam was surprised and glad that his lord hadn't changed at all. He had been worried about House Rezal's rough reputation and the rumors surrounding them, but his worries disappeared. Later, Liam went to perform his duties as the lord. After some time, Amagi came to him advising that he had worked enough. Liam sighed, disappointed that he was 6 minutes late. He reminded himself to practice the basics before enrolling in the academy. Amagi reminded him to enter the capsule one more time before enrolling as he only had 1 year left. Liam slouched, feeling disappointed that the training at House Rezal was so unsatisfactory. Suddenly, he realized something. He then decided to start one in his domain. Amagi apologized and reminded him that Liam didn't have enough standing in the Imperial Nobles Society, and that gathering students above the percentage of a count's household would be difficult. Liam understood and decided to start with the nobles near his domain. Amagi agreed with his plan, but the maid suddenly asked about the recent massive spending on weaponry. Liam was shocked. Amagi claimed the purchase of Fortress-class battleships could hinder their current plans. Liam said there should be no problem if he handed it over to someone else. Amagi disagreed and reminded Liam that his impulsive spending was getting worse. Anxious, Liam suggested lending them out for a fixed rate. By lending the older battleships, they could get rental fees in return. Amagi agreed that would suffice, but she wanted to be contacted next time if Liam was purchasing something, and Liam agreed. Liam asked what the paper Amagi was holding was about. Amagi explained that it was about the statues. According to the report, the statues were originally humans who had been petrified and seemed to have received some kind of blessing. Liam wondered if they had received blessings because their petrified faces showed despair. Amagi reported that it was the sanity-maintaining kind of blessing. For those who were petrified, maintaining sanity beforehand would make their experience hell afterward. Being unable to lose your thoughts while being petrified was certainly hell. Liam then wondered what the people had done to deserve such a fate. Amagi explained that there was no way to know unless they asked them directly and asked Liam what to do next. Liam recalled experiencing hell in his previous life and realized there was nothing wrong with saving people once in a while. If they dared to rise against him, Liam could just kill them. Liam decided to help them, and Amagi understood the order. Liam sighed again, and Amagi suggested they take a break. After thinking it over, Liam decided to enjoy a relaxing bath. They both went to an open bath, and Liam found it delightful, especially since he had been Japanese in his past life. He had been disappointed because, in Rezel's domain, he could only take cold showers, and at House Exner he couldn't enjoy a proper bath at all. The maids had nearly succeeded in washing his body for him, which he found frustrating. During those past 3 years, Liam realized his body had grown dull. Choosing Viscount Rizal had been a mistake because Rizal was too kind-hearted to notice the schemes around him, not understanding how villains think could put someone at a disadvantage. However, Liam did learn something from House Exner: how to impose a 60% tax on their people. He saw that Kurt, a serious individual, had the potential to become an evil lord. Amagi was glad that her master had found a great friend, and Liama agreed. Then Liam stood up and Amagi wondered what was wrong. Liam just stood there with an evil smile. Meanwhile, a TV show discussed the sudden spike in taxes which were used to develop nearby satellites. They thought it wasn't a bad decision if it was seen as an investment. However, it would increase the burden on those who would relocate there. They couldn't understand why their domain had to lend out battleships until they could afford to buy their own. Liam had just smiled menacingly as he listened to the people on the TV show worrying about the tax increase. Amagi could see that Liam was delighted. He enjoyed watching his people get troubled over the tax increase and misunderstand his motives, as he was doing it purely for his own selfish interest. Liam had been surprised at first that Brian and Amagi agreed to his proposal, saying it was about time. He believed he was one step closer to becoming an evil lord. Amagi, however, claimed that their main concern was the investment and security of their domain. Since Liam had left these matters to Amagi, she took the liberty to consult Brian about it. Liam laughed, saying he only wanted to see his subjects suffering. Amagi was glad that Liam was pleased. Another news report came in revealing that a hairstyle called the tornado-style cut was trending among the youth. Liam spat out the tea he was drinking and turned to Amagi. He asked if his domain was full of such hairstyles. Amagi assured him that it should be fine since the hairstyle was banned in the mansion, but Liam was still worried that it might exist outside the mansion. He didn't want his territory to have such an embarrassing style. He then asked Amagi to write an edict to immediately ban the hairstyle in his domain. Amagi worried that the people might do the opposite but promised to contact their administration officials. Suddenly, Brian entered the office and reported that he had someone to introduce. A tall woman then came in, introduced herself as Serena, and greeted Liam. Brian explained that she was an old acquaintance and wanted to work in Liam's domain. She had been both an instructor and the head of maids in the Imperial Palace before. Brian believed Serena was essential for accepting students in Liam's domain. Liam really wanted to push the plan to accept students and hoped that Serena would show good results. Serena thanked Liam for accepting her. In his eyes, Liam found Serena excellent and thanked Brian for bringing her in. The following year, Serena introduced the new students to the domain and instructed them to greet Liam. The students respectfully greeted Liam except for one overly confident student who glared at Amagi. He insulted Amagi, calling him a lowly android, which prompted Serena to slap him hard. She warned him to watch his mouth. Despite the warning, the student continued to run his mouth. Liam then stepped forward and slapped him so hard that his hand was a blur. Liam stated that he didn't want any delinquents and asked someone to remove the rowdy student. Liam then left the reception area while the other students trembled in fear. Back in Liam's office, Brian expressed his surprise at how well Serena had handled the situation, noting that the students quickly calmed down. However, he suggested that the situation could have been resolved more peacefully. Liam explained that he had held back because first impressions were important. Brian then wondered if any of the female students had caught Liam's interest. Liam admitted that a few had, but none had made a lasting impression on him. Brian thought this was a shame since all the female students were potential candidates to be Liam's concubines. This surprised Liam. Brian explained that although the female students came to study etiquette, they were all children of Liam's household servants. Even if Liam didn't choose them as his fiancée, they would still prioritize his desires. Brian found it more concerning that Liam was not interested in any of the girls. Liam exclaimed that he couldn't help it since there was no perfect beauty that caught his eye. Meanwhile, a boy felt deep despair when he learned that his family had been demoted to mere barons. All the merchants and capable vassals had left their domain. He wondered where he had gone wrong. Suddenly, a shadow touched the boy. A familiar figure appeared, the guide. The guide was disappointed that he had lost his form for quite some time, but thanks to the boy's despair, he had recovered his powers. Although it was against his policy to get directly involved, he resolved to reveal everything to Liam, who had believed in him. He wanted to give Liam a true taste of despair, and was determined to drag him down to the deepest, fiery pits of hell. Meanwhile, a sick Peter was lying on his bed with a dark shadow surrounding him and Katerina. The shadow slowly disappeared, and Katerina, who had been silent, suddenly returned to her senses. Peter then called himself an idiot. He promised not to bother Katerina anymore and asked her to go back to her house. Katerina said there was no point in returning to the ruined house Rizal, and decided to stay at House Peck to make it a proper home. Peter started crying and apologized to Katerina. Katerina told him to wait for a lord candidate to come and take over the title so they could retire together. She assured him that if they worked together, they would be fine. She also focused on curing little Peter's illness and planned to save enough money to buy an elixir. Peter couldn't help but thank Katerina for being a loyal wife. Back in Liam's domain, Serena had a meeting with someone. The person on the line said Liam had helped the Empire by accepting students and asked Serena to do her best to support him. The man then inquired about the Fortress-class battleships. Serena explained that they had been used as a defense line on the frontier until a permanent base could be established. The man was shocked by the extravagant use of such assets. Serena also mentioned that Liam was still living frugally. The man said that Liam's lack of drive and ambition was a problem, but as a noble, one privilege he had was the allocation of his own wealth. Serena explained that Liam just hadn't had the time to spare and knew how to spend his money wisely. The man was pleased that an upright lord was emerging and felt hopeful for the Empire's future. However, he had heard rumors about troublesome children in Liam's domain and hoped Liam wasn't having any issues dealing with them. Serena assured him that preparations for school admissions were going well and that the domain was peaceful so far. The man then mentioned another report he had received. Serena stated that Liam was strongly against it. The man understood Liam's feelings, but noted that people were revolting over the ban on the tornado-style haircuts, demanding their right to choose their hairstyles freely. The protest was broadcast live, and Liam watched the news. The military had been deployed to suppress the protesters, but the protests showed no signs of stopping. Liam couldn't believe that people were making a fuss over such ugly hairstyles. Brian reminded him that further actions would lead to a stronger backlash. Amagi suggested giving up and letting the people do their own thing. Liam exclaimed that the people should give up, not him. He then decided to give the military some clippers to cut off the ugly hairstyles from the protesters' heads. Suddenly, a spooky voice called out Liam. The guide appeared, saying it had been a while. Everything except Liam was frozen in time. Liam was surprised to see the guide and said he had something to discuss. The guide signaled him to stop and said he also had a lot to tell him. He asked Liam if he hadn't noticed anything strange lately. He reminded Liam about the tough treatment he received from House Razel. Liam wasn't sure if it was really that bad, and the guide insisted he should realize it. Then the guide decided to come clean. He said it should have been Liam who received the best treatment, not Peter. Additionally, Liam should have been the one to be engaged to Katerina, make connections with many respected and powerful nobles, and hold the position that Peter currently held. Liam was shocked by this revelation and asked what caused the reversal. The guide claimed it was he who set everything in motion. Liam looked surprised. The guide admitted it was he who took everything from Liam and ultimately confessed that he had been deceiving Liam the entire time. Liam then covered his mouth with his hand in surprise. Liam used to say that the service was great even back then. This confused the guide. Liam insisted that the guide had been secretly helping him all along. The guide sort of agreed, but he felt like Liam was getting the wrong idea. Liam, with innocent eyes, praised the guide as a good person. This made the guide feel uneasy, but Liam mistook it for embarrassment. Liam said the guide had helped him break ties with House Razel, causing trouble with House Petak in the process. Liam called the guide a truly kind person. The guide tried to explain that Liam had misunderstood. Blushing, Liam sincerely thanked the guide. His genuine appreciation made the guide feel a sharp pain, and then he vanished into thin air. Everything turned white around Liam, leaving him stunned and confused. He wondered if the guide had disappeared suddenly because he was too shy. Time passed, and Brian worried if something was wrong. He tried to ask about the hairstyle, but Liam had already given up on it. He suddenly exclaimed that he was in a good mood. Brian and Amagi were confused. Liam then decided to go to the government building. However, once there, he encountered the usual battleship salesperson who tried to use seductive tactics. Liam told Nias to leave, calling her a disappointment, and the servants promptly escorted her outside. Liam then requested the next guest to enter. Elisha arrived, announcing they had new arms to sell. Liam expressed he wasn't interested in buying anything, which concerned Elisha. She sat next to Liam and displayed her feminine attributes, offering him anything if he chose to make a purchase. Liam raised his hand silently and the servants came to remove Elisha from the room. Amagi mentioned that Thomas would be the next to arrive, and Liam felt relieved that someone respectable was coming. When Thomas entered, he brought along gold bars. He mentioned that it had been difficult to catch up with Liam lately. Liam attributed it to the disruptive and unsatisfactory company of certain women. Thomas remarked that it was a positive sign that Liam was drawing people in and noted that he had taken longer to visit due to trivial matters, as Liam had just completed his studies outside. Thomas then inquired whether Liam had secured a mansion for his stay on the capital planet yet. Liam was puzzled, so Thomas elaborated that nobles typically acquired one upon enrollment into the academy. The purpose was to serve as Liam's main headquarters while he was on the capital planet. However, the price of the land plots in the capital was too expensive. He suggested starting preparations soon, or he would not make it in time. He further suggested buying a land plot closer to the imperial palace, and claimed that many nobles would build their mansions with unique designs to attract attention. Liam promised not to do the same. Thomas then suggested renting out a hotel to demonstrate his societal standing. Liam wondered if it was okay to rent just one room. Thomas corrected him, saying that rooms for servants would also be necessary since renting only one room could cause many problems in the future. Liam then decided to rent the entire hotel. He asked Thomas to provide a list of good hotels and requested the most high-class one possible since he was willing to pay any price they asked. Meanwhile, in House Petak, Katerina stared angrily into the mirror, unable to accept that she had been deceived so easily. She declared that she possessed the looks, the body, and the education. She had worked hard to present herself as the ideal match for a wealthy and influential man while keeping her virtue intact. She vowed not to forgive the man who had rejected her in such a manner. Tears welled up in her eyes as she made up her mind to take control of the situation. She devised a plan to make the man she desired fall in love with her, only to then discard him and revel in his despair as he begged for her forgiveness. Soon after, Amagi led Liam to a facility to watch the curse being lifted from the petrified people. Liam swore to protect Amagi in case the cursed people went berserk. Amagi mentioned that there was a possibility the situation could become something even Liam couldn't handle. Liam replied that if he died, then he died. He was confident that everything would turn out fine for him since the guide had his back. The purification then began, and the petrified people were showered with elixir. The stone covering their bodies started chipping away, and they were surprised that they could move already. Liam was glad that things were going well. Suddenly, he noticed a peculiar scene. A girl who had just been freed from the petrification started crying uncontrollably. She fell to her knees when she saw Liam, and Liam noticed that the others were crying and bowing down too. Amagi observed that everyone was regaining their senses and realized that it was Liam who had freed them from the curse. This worked in Liam's favor, as he planned to use their gratitude to his advantage. Since they had just been released from the curse and their minds were still in disarray, Amagi suggested providing them with mental treatment first. Liam wanted to learn more about their situation once they recovered. Meanwhile, a familiar voice was groaning in pain. He couldn't help but curse Liam. He couldn't believe that Liam was being thanked even after confessing that he had deceived him. He coughed up his own blood and realized he had used more of his powers than he initially expected. He needed a large amount of negative emotions to recover. He then decided to go to the Empire's capital planet, assuming that such a place would have an abundance of negative emotions. He also planned to meet Liam there, knowing that Liam would enroll in the academy. He swore that the next time they met, it would be Liam's end. Soon after, in the capital's military prep school's first building, the headmaster welcomed the freshmen they called Gifted. He wished for them to be role models for other students over the next 6 years, and they, as educators, promised to provide them with a meaningful life as students. Liam smiled upon hearing the word gifted. In his mind, he was still thinking about how the country was corrupt, giving nobles preferential treatment due to money. Suddenly, the student beside him called out his name. It was Kurt, reminding him not to make a scene. Liam couldn't believe Kurt was being serious as always. He then noticed something unusual. Kurt had grown taller compared to him. His comment about this made Kurt flustered. Liam then looked around and noticed that the other noble children really acted like they were important. Kurt reminded him that someone couldn't enter the first building unless they were gifted or had a high social status. He claimed that these students were rather competent. Liam then looked behind him and noticed the male students trembling. Liam smirked evilly, remembering that he had enrolled with the power of money like a true villain. The two then noticed Isla and saw how maturely she behaved when they weren't around her. Kurt remarked that Isla would be happy if she heard Liam praising her. Liam wondered why Kurt thought that. He continued to look around and noticed a prim and proper blonde girl with long hair. Seeing her appearance, Liam called her incredible because it was his first time seeing someone with blonde curls. Kurt explained that she was Rosetta Sarah Claudia, famous for being the only daughter of a ducal household. Liam assumed that Rosetta would become the Duchess in the future since she was the only daughter. Her rank was 2 levels above Liam's. Liam sighed and ranked Rosetta as the second among the students. He then looked to his side and stated that he already knew who the top student was. It was the Empire's 120th Prince, Wallace Noah Albert. Liam couldn't believe how many siblings Wallace had. He concluded that it was normal in an intergalactic empire. Feeling tired, he started missing Amagi. Soon after, in a classroom, a teacher named John introduced himself to the class. Everyone fell silent. Since no one reacted, John called out a troublemaker among the students. It turned out to be Wallace. He asked what was wrong. John complained about the ridiculous earrings Wallace was wearing. Wallace laughed and proudly shared that he had bought them in the city before coming to school. No one in the class reacted. Liam recalled Serena warning him to be careful around Wallace. He understood now why Serena called the prince problematic. Teacher John got angry and reminded everyone that the school was a place where nobles learned proper etiquette. He asked Wallace if such earrings were necessary. Wallace couldn't say anything in response. John then told him to do 100 push-ups as punishment. Wallace was in disbelief and reminded John that he was a prince. John exclaimed that this was even more reason to punish him. Since he was an imperial prince, he should act like one. Scared, Wallace quickly went to the floor and started doing push-ups. John reminded the students that they were not at home and would be living in the co-ed dorms. They were expected to handle all aspects of their daily lives. He emphasized that the academy was no place for the weak, and promised to educate them to become the next generation of noble leaders for their empire. Everyone in the class anxiously sweated as John told them he would drill all the basics of regular life into their heads. 3 months later, in the dorms, Liam was casually doing his push-ups until he noticed the time. He went to the training grounds where Kurt greeted him. He saw that everyone still looked sleepy. Kurt explained that it was challenging because not everyone was used to waking up early. It was 6 in the morning and they were doing physical training. Kurt noticed that Liam had done some pre-workout exercises earlier. Liam explained that his master's routine had already become a habit for him. Kurt then realized that the academy's physical training was not enough for Liam, and Liam quickly agreed. The days went on with studying lessons and practicing martial arts. Liam sighed because it was too easy for him. He had already learned everything when he entered the education capsule and found the passing days boring. He wished something interesting would happen. Then he glanced to the side and noticed Rosetta with dark circles under her eyes. He wondered if she hadn't been able to get enough sleep. Rosetta flinched when she noticed Liam looking at her. She returned his gaze, and seeing her annoyed expression, Liam smiled as if he had found a new toy to play with. After class, Liam didn't hesitate to approach the usually unapproachable Rosetta and called out to her. Rosetta wondered if he needed something but immediately focused on the learning materials in front of her. Liam invited her to lunch to talk, but Rosetta quickly refused, saying she was busy and preferred to eat alone. Liam gave up immediately, and after exchanging a few words, he realized that Rosetta couldn't stand him. As an aspiring villain, he found the situation interesting. Seeing him smile evilly, Isla knew that Liam was up to something again. Liam agreed immediately and explained that he had found a way to sneak out through the dorms to play outside as much as he could. Isla was shocked and asked him to tell her more later because she wanted to go out during the weekdays. Kurt stared at Liam and said he couldn't tell if Liam was a serious guy or not. Liam claimed he was the slacker type while Kurt was the serious one. Suddenly, Wallace appeared in the dining hall, asking girls to have dinner with him. The girls freaked out and tried to escape from him. Wallace then asked if any families were looking for a son-in-law, or if there was anyone financially stable who wanted to marry off their daughters. The girls started making up excuses implying that they, as daughters of their own families, didn't have the financial power. Wallace was disappointed but continued to ask nearby girls out. Liam mistakenly called Wallace an imperial prince. Isla was amazed that Wallace didn't get discouraged doing the same thing every day. Kurt assumed Wallace had his circumstances since he was a royal whose position was in the 100th and lower in line for the throne, leading to the worst treatment. Kurt explained that it was more appropriate to support those at least in the 30th line, while anyone lower was treated worse than destitute nobles. Liam then found being a prince troublesome and realized that Wallace was hitting on girls because he was desperate to be independent. He suggested that Wallace should just directly ask to be independent. Kurt claimed it would be better if someone would sponsor him. Isla insisted that would be impossible for Wallace. Suddenly, Liam had an idea as he fully realized that Wallace was a pitiful guy and decided to back him up since it would make things interesting. He stood up from his seat and called out Wallace's name, rudely telling him to come over. This surprised both Kurt and Isla, and of course Wallace himself. The two friends were shocked and were reminded not to talk to Wallace that way. Wallace then scratched his head and claimed that he had no interest in chasing boys. Isla suddenly let out an ominous and asked Wallace to say it again. When Isla crushed her cup, Wallace was in shock and fear. Liam then clarified that he had no interest in Wallace's body at all. Wallace was surprised by how blunt Liam was. Liam said it was better than being a playboy who hits on every girl he meets. Wallace exclaimed that he was only doing his best and swallowing his pride for the sake of being independent. Liam wondered if that was true since he noticed Wallace seemed to enjoy it. Wallace then flinched and confessed that he didn't have a choice. Back in the Imperial Palace, there were no girls to talk to except his mother and sisters. Isla asked if Wallace didn't talk to the maids. Wallace explained that he had been strictly taught not to trust anyone in the imperial political scene. Isla fully understood and called him amazing for being a womanizer despite his lack of experience. Wallace was shocked to realize that Isla hated him that much. Liam had also agreed not to trust any living, breathing woman and had realized that Amagi was the best choice for him. He then asked if Wallace really wanted to live independently. Wallace exclaimed that he did and wanted to become a proper adult man. Despite being royalty, he felt inferior to territorial nobilities and desired to forge his own path. Kurt sympathized with his situation, and Wallace was relieved that Kurt understood. He then asked if Kurt would be willing to support him. Kurt was surprised by the sudden heavy request and declined Wallace's offer. Liam then grinned wickedly and offered to support Wallace, leaving the prince astonished. Isla objected, stating that Liam wouldn't gain anything from it. Liam insisted he didn't care and assured Wallace that House Banfield would back his independence even if it meant living in the countryside. Wallace stood up silently and respectfully bowed, accepting Liam as his supporter in the end. After some time, Brian and Serena met up. Serena explained that Wallace's withdrawal from the succession race had been successful. Brian hadn't expected Liam to become Wallace's supporter, and Serena agreed. She assumed that Liam was aiming to gain trust rather than advantages at that moment. If Wallace were to become independent, Liam would earn the trust of many. She remarked on how Lord Liam always surprised them, and Brian nodded in agreement. Shortly after, Wallace celebrated as he was finally no longer an imperial prince, simply Wallace. Liam could see how lively he was. Wallace exclaimed that it was all thanks to Liam that he was freed from the shackles of being an imperial prince. He expressed deep gratitude for the help. However, Liam still believed that being an imperial prince had its own perks. Wallace disagreed at that moment and began to explain his viewpoint. He said that being a member of the imperial family would have meant being associated with violence and conflict. Kurt mentioned hearing rumors about this when the new emperor took power, noting a decrease in the number of siblings during the succession. Wallace affirmed that most of these rumors were indeed true. Prior to the ceremony, many rivals would mysteriously meet their end, and those present during the event would often be either holographic projections or stand-ins. This was a pattern that had occurred when Wallace's father became emperor as well. Wallace expressed his gratitude to Liam once again for rescuing him from the competition for succession. Liam had considered the possibility that Wallace wouldn't be able to become emperor from the start. Wallace argued there was still a small chance. Because of his family connections, especially his mother and stepmother, Wallace believed he could still get involved. He feared being grouped with another faction opposed to the current regime and being executed along with them. He also mentioned the terrible treatment of those who lost in the power struggle, citing Rosetta from House Claudia as one of the victims. Kurt was taken aback by the sudden mention of Rosetta's name, feeling confused. Wallace then explained something that had happened 2,000 years ago. The succession war during that time had been much worse than the present. The crown prince who was supposed to ascend to the throne had suddenly been found dead right before the ceremony. Initially, House Claudia supported the said crown prince because they were related by marriage to the brother of the crown prince, who shared the same mother. After the death of the crown prince, a prince from the opposing faction claimed the throne. The new emperor enacted terrible acts of revenge against all imperial royalty whom he viewed as enemies. The bridegroom was executed, and House Claudia was also targeted. They were stripped of their vast territories and banished to a barren planet where they couldn't collect taxes or produce anything at all. The emperor chose not to revoke House Claudia's ducal status, leaving them as nobility, but in name only. They were essentially made an example for others to see. Wallace had shared the background of House Claudia, but he noticed everyone seemed grim after he had spoken too much. Despite this, he felt grateful to Liam for helping him, and Liam insisted he should be even more thankful. Wallace agreed emphatically. Meanwhile, Rosetta returned to her dorm room feeling exhausted. She loosened her necktie and sank down against the door feeling drained. She struggled to keep up with the lesson content, knowing her family couldn't afford the education capsule. With no other options, she had to put in extra effort to study. She needed to rank first in her class to have any chance of improving her family's situation. Losing at the academy was not an option for her. She simply couldn't afford it. In a memory from the past, Rosetta found herself embraced tightly by her grandmother. Wondering why tears streamed down her grandmother's face, Rosetta received a gentle reassurance as her grandmother wiped them away, insisting it was nothing. Her grandmother then suggested they prepare for the party at the imperial capital by donning their finest dresses. Excited by the prospect, Rosetta's mother styled her hair while her grandmother returned with a flower that perfectly complemented her beauty. Admiring herself in the mirror, Rosetta felt like a princess and expressed her gratitude before eagerly setting off for the party. However, her excitement was short-lived as she soon returned home with her dress in tatters, standing forlornly in the rain outside her house. Seeing her distress, her grandmother rushed out to embrace her tightly. Rosetta recounted the hurtful words hurled at her, being labeled as dirty and mocked as the new jester from House Claudia. It was surprising for them that the Claudias dared to attend the event in the imperial capital, and Rosetta was subjected to a barrage of insults and mistreatment, while bystanders did nothing to intervene. Confused and hurt, Rosetta turned to her grandmother for answers. Rosetta's grandma had told her to listen carefully as she spoke. She urged Rosetta not to forget those who showed kindness to them, emphasizing the importance of repaying such kindness. She advised Rosetta to gain favor with such individuals and even bear their child for the sake of securing their future, explaining that this was crucial for the survival of House Claudia. This explained why their family lacked a male head, including her own father. Grandma encouraged Rosetta to grow up and become attractive to capture the hearts of men. The next morning, Rosetta woke up from a flashback dream. She arrived at school late with messy hair and apologized to her teacher for her tardiness. She couldn't believe she had fallen asleep as soon as she got to her room. Her classmates began teasing her, calling her clumsy and unkempt for not paying attention to her appearance. Sarah shot a disapproving glance at Liam, who seemed indifferent to Rosetta's situation. Rosetta remembered Liam as the epitome of success, a young count known for his exceptional governing skills and prowess in swordsmanship. Even the older students at the academy respected him. Rosetta resented Liam for not acknowledging her, feeling insignificant compared to him. She believed it was unfair that someone like Liam, who seemed to effortlessly achieve everything, didn't pay her any attention. No matter how hard she tried, she knew she could never gain Liam's interest, which only fueled her hatred towards him. Sometime later, the school held its annual event where mobile knights dueled. A duel had just finished and everyone cheered for the winner except for Wallace, who watched alongside Liam, Kurt, and Isla. Liam found the night duels fascinating and wished they could happen more than once a year. Kurt explained that the event showcased the training outcomes of third-year students. He also mentioned the dangers involved, which deterred many from participating. Kurt emphasized that those who did participate needed to prove to the audience that they had become fully fledged knights. On the other hand, Wallace had been crying a river since he had bet on the wrong horse. Liam was surprised to hear about the betting. Wallace insisted it was only through illegal means. Isla couldn't believe Wallace had put all his money on such a risky comeback. She straightforwardly called him foolish. Wallace felt hurt by her words, but then had a sudden realization. He wondered if Isla had feelings for him, thinking she might be one to tease someone she liked. Isla's patience wore thin, and she glared at Wallace as if she had unleashed her inner demon. Without a word from Isla, Wallace quickly apologized. Kurt had reminded them that betting wasn't a wise choice. Wallace argued it was worth it, as he could easily double or triple his allowance. But Kurt quickly pointed out the risks, mentioning how Wallace had recently lost all the money Liam had given him. Wallace felt a sting at the reminder, and suddenly realized he'd be strapped for cash for the next 2 weeks. Desperate, he considered asking Liam for more money. Meanwhile, another scuffle broke out between mobile knights. Kurt eagerly anticipated Liam's upcoming fight as a third-year student. Liam wondered if anyone would even challenge him. They noticed people flaunting flashy mobile knights, though they were just fancy on the outside with cheap interiors. Wallace chimed in, emphasizing the importance of skill, and how it would be unfair to overpower opponents with better specs. They had no choice but to stick to the training models. Wallace sighed, lamenting that despite being an imperial prince, he didn't have his own personal mobile knight. Liam had claimed he would use his own from the start, surprising Wallace, who hadn't known Liam had one. Isla and Kurt then got into an enthusiastic conversation about the mobile knight Avid, speaking like hardcore fans who knew how strong and cool it was. However, Kurt remembered that Avid had been modded a lot and worried about its maintenance. Liam agreed, saying it was a pain. Suddenly, the fight in the arena ended as one of the students surrendered. The winner of the final fight was a student named Derek, who became the annual champion. The audience grew nervous as the losing student nearly died in the fight. Liam quickly checked Derek's profile and discovered that he was barren. There were no count-ranked nobles in the fights, so Liam couldn't really gauge Derek's strength. He didn't seem strong at all, but Liam suddenly smiled, planning something. He decided to make Derek kneel down before him using his overwhelming strength. Shortly after, Nias refused to enhance Avid in its current state, arguing it couldn't be done. She insisted that Avid was only just keeping pace with Liam's piloting abilities and proposed starting from scratch. Liam expressed his attachment to Avid, declaring he was willing to pay any price to upgrade it. Nias frowned, explaining that money alone couldn't solve the problem. She suggested that it might be feasible if Liam could provide a substantial amount of rare metals. Liam asked what she needed specifically. Nias then listed orichalcum, adamantite, mithril, emphasizing the need for a significant quantity. Regarding labor costs, she estimated it would require an amount equivalent to purchasing an entire fleet of battleships. Additionally, they would need to hire a highly skilled team for an extended period. Liam understood that if he could fulfill Nias's requests, an upgrade for Avid could be possible. Nias confirmed this and promised to send an estimate of the materials and costs. She also asked if they could find someone to test pilot the upgrade. Nias insisted that the testing pilot should be as skilled as Liam in piloting Avid. Liam then opened a document displaying a familiar girl's data and decided she was the best candidate for testing. According to the reports, there shouldn't be any issues with her. Liam assured Nias that he understood her requests. Nias sighed as Liam ended the call, assuming it would be impossible even for him to fulfill what she asked. Shortly thereafter, Nias became engrossed in her work as numerous crates of materials were delivered to the factory. An employee mentioned that they had already compiled a list of the gathered materials. Nias was surprised to learn that Liam had accomplished what she had asked for. The test pilot also made her appearance. She introduced herself as Marie Sarah Marianne, clad in armor with what appeared to be guns holstered at her waist. She greeted Nias warmly, who was taken aback by her sudden arrival and returned the greeting. Nias pondered whether Marie could pilot the Avid, given that there were few people skilled enough to operate a mobile knight without relying on the assist system. Marie assured her that it wouldn't be an issue, mentioning that in her time, pilots who used the assist system were considered amateurs. She had heard about the difficulty of piloting the Avid and was eager to try it out. She expressed her delight at being able to ride Liam's personal mobile knight. Nias wondered if Marie would be alright and what she meant by back in her days. Nias looked at the huge pile of materials in front of her and realized she could now try out many things and gather a lot of data. She started daydreaming, lost in thought for a moment, and then snapped back to reality. She urged Marie to get started right away. Marie remembered how Liam had saved her and vowed to repay his kindness. Betrayed by the Emperor, she had been turned into stone and displayed for 2,000 years. She had endured immense suffering and shame, and she was determined not to feel regret again. She swore to fulfill the mission Liam had entrusted to her, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Rosetta had been alone, poring over her disappointing grades. She fretted about what steps to take next. Suddenly, Derek appeared and couldn't believe his eyes when he saw her grades, which were even worse than what he expected from an average student. Rosetta shoved him away, urging him not to peek. Derek told her to relax and seized her hands. He pressed her against the wall, reminding her of her poor background. Yet, despite his words, his eyes betrayed a certain satisfaction at seeing her, knowing she hailed from a family rumored to engage in selling their bodies. Derek and his lackeys then forcibly took Rosetta into a room, treating her roughly as if she were an object. Derek insisted she should feel grateful, as he intended to give away his family's supposedly superior genes to her, but made it clear he wouldn't acknowledge any offspring resulting from their encounter. Rosetta found herself immobilized by Derek's henchmen, their hands clamping over her mouth. It was unbelievable that she was enduring such torment simply because of her affiliation with House Claudia. She wondered why her family still bore the burden of sins committed millennia ago. Derek loomed over her, his intentions menacing. In desperation, Rosetta wished for someone to come to her aid. Suddenly, a student was sent crashing into the walls. All heads turned to the entrance, where Liam stood, irritated by the commotion. He demanded to know who they were. Wallace, his voice trembling, cautioned Liam against getting involved with Derek, citing his allegiance to House Berkeley. Kurt fretted over the situation, realizing the student before them was the newly crowned champion of the tournament. Derek's lackey then exclaimed that the person who barged in was the one known as the Pirate Hunter. Derek finally met Liam and wondered why he was being talked down to. Liam didn't hesitate to throw a punch at him. Derek was thrown to the floor and became unconscious. Rosetta was shocked by what had just happened. Liam exclaimed that he was a count and a mere baron should watch his mouth around him. One of Derek's henchmen got angry and told Liam not to get too arrogant since he was only a country person. Liam gritted his teeth and punched the henchman on the head. Wallace panicked and exclaimed that Liam should carefully consider his opponent before starting a fight. Kurt and Isla then clung onto Liam to stop him from escalating the situation. Derek's henchmen then picked him up. As they left, they warned Liam that he would regret his actions. Liam noticed Rosetta on the floor and asked if she was okay, extending his hand to help her up. But Rosetta pushed his hand away and burst into tears. She insisted he shouldn't touch her, emphasizing her noble background and implying she didn't need help from someone like Liam. She stood up and told them to move aside. Kurt observed Rosetta leaving, then turned to Liam, checking if he was okay after being ignored. Surprisingly, Liam was smiling and appeared rejuvenated. Rosetta returned to her room and asked herself why she had been acting foolishly. She believed it was justified to feel resentful towards anyone who ignored her. She felt upset that she hadn't even thanked Liam for saving her. She wondered if her anger stemmed from Liam's actions of saving her. She assumed she despised Liam for helping her as if he was giving her charity. Then she realized she was wrong and that the fault lay solely with her. She understood that her own weakness was the reason for her envy and resentment towards Liam. She couldn't believe she hadn't expressed gratitude despite feeling thankful at the time. She made a resolution to emulate Liam and find the strength to stand up without relying on others. In the past, the man she admired as a role model kept on smiling wickedly. She found Rosetta amusing because she was proud and arrogant. Being an evil lord himself, Rosetta made his blood boil. But these situations amused him. Wallace was worried and wondered what was bothering Liam. Kurt sighed and said it was a bad habit. Wallace became even more concerned and questioned if his mentor was actually a troublesome person. Kurt clarified that wasn't the case, but rather they were facing a problem at the moment. Wallace fretted since it seemed like the same thing to him. Liam had asked Kurt not to interfere this time, and Kurt readily agreed. Liam went into his room, leaving Kurt and Wallace behind. Kurt, who used to be royalty, wondered if Liam would be okay since he had basically picked a fight with the Berkeley family. Confused, Kurt asked if it wasn't Count Berkeley himself. Wallace was surprised that Kurt didn't know much about the Berkeley family. The two then sat down for a chat, and Wallace began explaining things about the Berkeley family. He mentioned that when a child was born into that family, they were given their own territory and made independent as a baron. However, in reality, all the territories were managed by Derek's father. The family was essentially a group of barons. They were considered dangerous because they made profits by pretending to be pirates, and they were currently at the top. Wallace further explained that they were considered troublesome, but the Empire couldn't stop them because they controlled the supply of the precious elixir. Additionally, their fleet alone was bigger than that of a low-ranking ducal house. Wallace insisted that they shouldn't make enemies out of them, and suggested that they convince Liam to apologize to them. Kurt had insisted that it was impossible given Liam's ruthless attitude towards pirates. Instead of apologizing, Liam would simply resort to violence against them. Wallace interjected, pointing out that their opponents were nobles, not pirates. Kurt then recounted an incident where Liam had decimated a noble's fleet, disguising themselves as pirates. Wallace couldn't help but worry about Liam and his independence. Later that night, in the dormitory corridors, some shadows dealt with intruders who had snuck in. Liam was peacefully asleep until a strange, eerie hand emerged from the shadows. A masked figure in all-black attire appeared and gazed at Liam. Gently, the figure covered Liam with a blanket to shield him from the cold. Liam woke up and grumbled about the noise, addressing the masked person as Kukuri. Kukuri apologized for disturbing his lord's rest and explained that they had just chased away some unruly stray dogs nearby. Liam instructed Kukuri to return the dogs to their owners if that was the case. Kukuri accepted the order and vanished into the shadows. Kukuri had appeared in the corridor where his team had held the intruders. He claimed to have received orders from Liam to return the trespassers back to their owner. Though he already had a good idea of who the owner might be, he still felt it necessary to ask, just in case. One of the trespassers' mouths was uncovered, and Kukuri made him look into his eyes as if he were being hypnotized. Immediately, the trespasser confessed that they had been ordered by Derek to kidnap and torture Liam. Kukuri's teammates then prepared to use their weapons against the trespasser, but Kukuri instructed them to wait. The trespasser, curious, asked who Kukuri and the others were, as they hadn't heard of anyone like them working in the shadows. Kukuri explained that they were a clan that had ceased to exist in the past but had been brought back into existence. However, this was unrelated to the trespassers' situation. Kukuri then instructed his team to return the dogs to their owner. Since they had the opportunity, Kukuri decided to properly display the dogs for all to see. He extended his sharp claws toward the frightened trespasser. The next morning, a loud scream was heard. It came from Derek, who looked pale for some reason. An attendant came over to check on him. In his room, mangled dead bodies were displayed in the middle of the room like a sculpture. He recalled sending the skilled ones to do the job and wondered if the tables had turned on them. He also wondered how it was possible that no one had noticed someone managing to get inside his place. He then ordered his servants to clean up the mess. An attendant then claimed there was bad news, and Derek angrily asked what it was. The attendant reported that the battleships they had sent to attack Liam's frontier planet had been annihilated. They didn't know that there were Fortress-class battleships defending there. Shocked, Derek knew he had screwed up. Since he had assumed that he would definitely annihilate Liam's planet, he made the attackers carry the planetary development device. Without them, they couldn't make elixirs anymore. He gritted his teeth in anger and decided to kill Liam during the tournament instead, since he knew Liam would participate. Meanwhile, Liam smiled from ear to ear after seeing the report that Marie handled Avid well without any issues. He was also glad he hired Kukuri as his personal escort. He appreciated that Kukuri went out of his way to report about the lost dog since Liam was a big dog lover. The time it took to remove the petrification was long, but it was worth it. The only thing left for him to do was break Rosetta's heart into pieces. Seeing his evil grin, Wallace couldn't believe Liam enjoyed things despite his current situation. Liam confidently claimed that he was enjoying it. Wallace couldn't understand what Liam was thinking, and it made him very worried. He wondered if Liam even felt bad for him, and asked for more allowance money. But Liam refused. Liam then changed the topic and asked the ex-imperial prince how he could raise his peerage quickly. He knew that a former prince would know the way. Wallace admitted that he did, and explained that the fastest way was to buy the title from other noble houses. However, he suggested buying it from nobles who had nothing but their peerage. Liam then asked for more details. Wallace explained that such households usually pass down the peerage to their heir. The household wanting to buy the peerage had to have their heir accepted by the former. Afterward, they would become the master and mistress of the house, and the peerage would naturally be passed to them. That way, one could gain a high peerage. However, households that resorted to this usually faced many problems and a mountain of debt. The household that received the peerage had to solve all of those problems. In short, Liam needed to pay off the debt of some broke household and take their daughter as his wife to earn their peerage. Wallace confirmed this, and further explained that a house with a greater peerage than his would naturally have more debt. He wondered if Liam would spend that kind of money. After explaining things, Wallace asked for more allowance money, but Liam just flicked his forehead. Liam then imagined telling Rosetta personally to hand over her peerage. He wondered if she would glare at him as usual. Liam was fine with that, but he was more excited to see Rosetta's face of despair once he took away her household's peerage. As he walked away, Wallace asked if he was going to the toilet. Liam told him not to follow. He claimed he would call someone in his homeworld since he had just thought of something amusing. Back in Liam's domain, Amagi and Brian sat down together as Liam gave them a video call. He told them he had found someone to welcome to the Banfield household. This surprised Brian, and Amagi asked what kind of person she was. Liam explained that it was Rosetta from a ducal household. He already knew that the household had a mountain of debt, but it was not an issue for him. He wanted their peerage in the end. Brian, excited, decided to look into the matter immediately. Liam left the arrangements to Brian. He then recalled Rosetta's iron will and the feeling of sternness surrounding her. She was stubborn yet clumsy, but these traits made her desirable to Liam. Rosetta was someone whose pride alone was worthy of her current self. Liam confessed that a person like Rosetta was what he liked the most. Soon after, Rosetta had a headache after hearing about a marriage proposal from the Banfield household. She knew there was no benefit for Liam and wondered what he was planning. Just then, she tripped on the edge of the staircase and a man in a suit suddenly saved her, claiming she could have died. He told her not to die in such a disgraceful manner with her hideous body. He knew things had become interesting lately and thought it would be boring if everything ended with her dying on the staircase. He wanted to see her household suffer more, as that was the decree of the late emperor. Rosetta quickly got away and escaped from the man in the suit. She had had enough. She had already endured too much misery her whole life when she didn't even want to be born in the first place. Suddenly, while Liam was doing his morning jog, he saw Rosetta. He asked if she was feeling unwell and if she had already eaten breakfast. Rosetta told him not to come closer. Liam then asked her not to say such cold words since he was only worried about her. His words surprised Rosetta, and she anxiously looked at Liam's face only to see an expression opposite of worry. She assumed that Liam was affiliated with those observers who were watching over House Claudia. She didn't want to believe Liam's words. Liam then invited her for a meal, but Rosetta quickly turned him down. Liam could see how stubborn Rosetta was, but claimed he would still invite her again the next day. Liam walked away and Rosetta watched his back. She wondered why Liam was being nice to her. She knew that Liam wouldn't gain anything from marrying her. Liam made her hope for more in the future. It didn't take long for rumors about Rosetta acting overconfident to spread through the academy. Everyone already knew that Rosetta was Liam's favorite and warned each other not to mess with her. They understood that angering Liam would mean the end of their household. They even talked about rumors of battleships getting obliterated if they made an enemy out of Liam. Isla silently listened to those rumors about Liam and Rosetta. She noticed that those who had made fun of Rosetta before had now disappeared. Even the higher grade students in the first building feared Liam, so it seemed safe for Rosetta now. Still, she didn't expect Liam to pursue Rosetta and like her. She had only thought of Liam and Kurt as a pairing, but understood that Liam had to do something for his household. She then decided to add some variables to her fantasies about her friends. She smiled creepily and imagined Liam pinning Kurt against a wall. However, a wild Wallace suddenly appeared to intervene and ask Liam for allowance money. Isla silently screamed. She couldn't believe she had thought of something so wicked, letting an annoying and worthless bug enter the equation. Her imagination ran wild as she thought of Wallace-Liam and Wallace-Kurt pairings. Who do you support among these pairings? Anyway, Isla couldn't believe she had thought of those pairings and repeatedly slammed her head on her desk. After classes, Liam got in touch with Brian, who started the call by apologizing. Brian reported that the previous heads of House Claudia were doubting Liam's intentions, and it might be impossible to move forward with the wedding proposal. Liam smirked, realizing that Rosetta's predecessors were a bunch of dense, old-fashioned ladies just like her. Liam told Brian to take the negotiations slowly to lower their vigilance. He said the first thing they needed to show was their sincerity. Brian got excited and understood Liam's instructions. However, Brian was worried that if Liam claimed it was love at first sight, there would be no reason for the Barfield household to take Rosetta as a wife. That was what House Claudia had mentioned. Liam then quickly imagined Rosetta exclaiming that there was no reason for her to marry someone from the countryside since she came from a proud, long-standing ducal household. Liam completely misunderstood the situation and wore another evil grin. Brian asked again if Liam was really serious about taking Rosetta as his wife. Liam wondered if Brian was not satisfied with his decision. Brian confessed that he was concerned because House Claudia's debts were much greater than the Banfield household's past debts. He reminded Liam that they would not gain anything and wouldn't profit at all from the marriage. He couldn't help but oppose it. Liam agreed that it could cost them, but he knew the ongoing development plans would be hindered if he changed his mind. He claimed he had no intention of changing his mind and that his decision was final. Brian was surprised, but eventually understood Liam's decision. Liam then remembered Avid, which he had sent out for maintenance. He told Brian to make preparations since he would personally pick it up from the 7th factory. Brian acknowledged the orders. Brian then wanted to tell Liam something. As a vassal of House Banfield, he was against the marriage with House Claudia, but as a person, he genuinely supported Liam's decision. This made Liam a bit confused. He then let Brian handle everything he had asked for. The call ended and Brian smiled. He was glad that Liam had finally found a woman who was worth more than his own personal gain. The old butler was brimming with happiness. This really was a story with misunderstandings in every chapter. Liam visited the 7th weapons factory where Maria welcomed him. He thanked her for testing Avid but wondered about Nias, who had been acting like a mother to the machine. Seeing how Nias had become frantic, Liam assumed that repairing and maintaining Avid must have been challenging. He noticed that Avid's performance and functions had improved significantly as he had requested. However, he brought up an issue to Nias. Concerned, Marie asked what was wrong. Liam complained that Avid had not been painted gold, even though he had sent plenty of gold bars for the job. Nias protested, saying she didn't want Avid to look like it belonged to a social climber. She insisted that Avid looked better in the silver and black of mithril and adamantite. Marie drew her blades and pointed them at Nias's neck, demanding that she apologize to Liam by dying. She told Nias to step away from Avid because she didn't want to stain the frame with Nias's blood. Nias cried out and begged for a different punishment. Liam sighed and asked Marie to stop. He knew Nias had her flaws, but she was undeniably skilled. He decided to forgive her this time, but still wanted Avid painted gold. When Nias threw a tantrum and refused, Liam, frustrated, gave up and left Avid's original color unchanged. Nias looked relieved, but Liam planned to complain to her boss later. Meanwhile, Rosetta met with the men who were monitoring her family. They told her to join the tournament, saying it would be a memorable experience. They even offered her a mobile knight to borrow. Rosetta knew they just wanted to see her lose and fall into debt. However, she realized that refusing them would lead her to a life of poverty, so she decided to play along. In the end, she agreed to join. The man was pleased and mentioned that Derek from the Berkeley family and Liam, the famous pirate hunter, would also participate in the tournament. He had heard that Liam wanted to marry Rosetta, but believed Liam would back out once he learned about House Claudia's debt. He told Rosetta not to dream of escaping their fate, and suggested it would be more realistic to beg for Liam's genes instead. Rosetta said nothing and left the room. The man couldn't believe that a country bumpkin's sense of justice was causing them trouble. They then planned to eliminate Liam through the tournament since their important mission of 2,000 years was not a lost cause. Meanwhile, Brian welcomed guests from House Claudia, including Rosetta's mother and grandmother. Rosetta's grandmother suddenly felt ill, and Brian suggested they quickly call a doctor. However, Rosetta's grandmother told Brian not to bother, as it was too late for her. She said she came, betting the last bit of her life for her granddaughter's sake. She respectfully declined the engagement proposal from House Banfield. Although she was grateful for the kindness House Banfield showed, she didn't want to burden them with anything more than their already large debt. Brian asked what she meant by that. Rosetta's grandmother explained that their house had been under the watch of enforcers by the late Emperor's order for 2,000 years. House Claudia was being treated as a toy. If Rosetta got engaged to Liam, House Claudia would be destroyed and House Banfield would become the next target. She didn't want another house to suffer the same cruel fate. However, to keep their house going, they needed genetics from other noble families. Even though they rudely refused the marriage offer, they still wanted to obtain Liam's genes. Brian couldn't believe the story he had just heard. It was shocking that such a cruel act continued even in this day and age. He assumed Liam already knew about it and probably wanted to help. Brian felt ashamed for only thinking about the benefits. He then refused the idea and made it clear that Liam truly wanted to welcome Rosetta into their household. He explained that they had already received permission from the current emperor, and House Banfield would take on the debt owed by House Claudia. He insisted that there should be no issues at all. He vowed to Liam that he wouldn't give up until House Claudia agreed to the engagement proposal. Later, during the Mobile Knight tournament, Derek Berkeley won another round. Wallace celebrated because he had bet all his money on Derek. Isla called him trash for using Liam's money to bet on someone else, but Wallace claimed he only wanted to make a big profit. He shouted that Derek had been winning for 2 years straight since his first battle. Kurt criticized the matches, saying they were always biased in Derek's favor. Isla noticed that Derek was already using the latest model of Mobile Knight and still managed to bribe everyone. She wondered if Derek would be weak in real battles. Wallace asked her to stop talking, warning that it would be bad if the Berkeley house overheard them. Just then, Nias appeared and said that Derek didn't have a match against Avid and its pilot. She greeted everyone and then noticed that Derek was using the latest model from the first factory, which had been made by stealing designs from other weapons factories. Kurt then asked if Nias had come to strengthen Avid, and Nias confirmed that she was there to check if Avid could fight well on land. However, she exclaimed that a landscape like the one in front of them would be leveled instantly by Avid. She then laughed proudly. Wallace could see that the people close to Liam were strange after all. Soon after, Avid stepped in and announced the fight between Liam and Rosetta. Nias explained that she had added a greatsword, hover unit, pile bunker, and claws to Avid. On the other hand, they could see that Rosetta was using a rented training unit. Nias noticed how the unit wasn't in good condition, and thought fighting with it was a reckless thing to do. On the battlefield, Avid stood tall in front of the training mobile knight unit. Liam praised Rosetta for not backing out of the fight. If Rosetta had cried and begged, Liam would have fought her gently. Rosetta gritted her teeth and told Liam to shut up. She claimed she wouldn't be defeated by someone like Liam, and that if it was a match, she might have a chance to win. Liam chuckled and decided to tell Rosetta something. He said that reality always favors the strong. He reminded her one last time that he would have gone easy on her if she had just accepted her defeat from the start. Rosetta trembled as the battle's countdown began. She charged forward and lifted her sword, beginning to slash at Liam. However, Avid had become too agile after its upgrades. Rosetta quickly grew tired and wondered how much money Liam had spent on his personal mobile knight. She kept attacking, but Avid easily broke the training mobile knight's sword with just one fingertip, leaving Rosetta speechless. Liam remarked how fragile the unit was, comparing it to glass. In frustration, Rosetta threw down her sword and declared she wouldn't lose to someone who looked down on others. Determined, she decided to tackle Liam, but with one sharp move, Avid effortlessly severed the training mobile knight's limbs. Rosetta grunted as she realized she was helpless on the ground. Avid stepped on her unit and questioned whether she had been cut in that moment. She couldn't believe the vast difference in skill between her and Liam. She fully realized that she couldn't win. She wondered if kneeling in submission would earn her forgiveness. She even considered flattering Liam to gain money to pay off the debt for renting the training mobile unit she had just used. As the feeling of misery returned, she wondered if this was the same miserable fate she had faced before. However, deep down, she didn't want another child to go through the same suffering as hers. She decided to end House Claudia with herself since it was the only way she could resist her miserable fate. Her unit was then forcefully broken open by Avid. Liam stepped out of Avid and looked down at Rosetta, calling her terrible. Rosetta hesitated for a moment before calling Liam rude. Liam then asked her to give up and be his so he could save her. Rosetta smiled and refused, saying she wouldn't bow to him. She told him to kill her if necessary. Even though she lost the battle, her spirit remained strong. She declared that she was Rosetta of the proud House Claudia. Rosetta's strong words impressed Liam, making him smile. He called her strong and acknowledged her efforts, but pointed out that it was the end for her. Rosetta knew this all too well. Liam then revealed that their engagement had just become official moments ago. He had received news from Brian that the Duchess of House Claudia had accepted his offer. He congratulated Rosetta for becoming his fiancée and asked for her hand. Rosetta was surprised and asked what he meant. She had asked if her mother truly approved of their engagement, and Liam confirmed it. Rosetta didn't believe him because she knew the observers wouldn't easily let their household go. Liam doubted her suspicion, thinking that House Banfield would be the next target. Rosetta was sure her mother wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Just then, a familiar voice assured Rosetta that it was true. Liam turned the video call towards her, showing her mother and grandmother. The two explained how they had visited House Banfield to refuse the engagement offer, but Brian revealed the truth, that Liam was willing to use everything at his disposal to save them. At first, they didn't want to believe him, as many had tried to deceive them with sweet lies before. However, seeing how serious House Banfield's head butler was, they thought they could trust Liam. Rosetta was shocked by this revelation. Rosetta's grandmother started coughing hard again, and Liam scolded Brian, telling him to let the poor grandmother rest. He then approached Rosetta and asked if she accepted her complete defeat. Rosetta shook her head, but Liam made it clear that he already had permission, and that being a sacrifice for the Empire was no longer an option for House Claudia. He claimed that both the Empire and Rosetta's family had given their approval, and nothing would stop him from taking Rosetta as his wife. He grabbed Rosetta's arm and declared that nothing could stand in his way. In his mind, he also thanked Rosetta for showing a defeated expression and making her declarations. As someone who aspired to be a villain, he wanted to slowly make Rosetta submit to him. The announcer then declared that Liam had won the battle, and his friends cheered loudly. Watching from a distance, Isla wondered what had happened between Liam and Rosetta. All they saw was the two of them having a conversation. Wallace assumed that Liam had bullied Rosetta to the point of tears, knowing how ruthless his patron could be. Kurt exclaimed that Avid's performance had improved, and it was surprising that Liam could control it without an assistance system. He worried that the gap between him and Liam had grown wider. Isla was pleased to see Kurt aiming to match Liam. She was happy to see them acting like rivals while still being close friends. She hoped their relationship was special, and Kurt wished for the same. His words made the usually pessimistic Isla happy, so she cheered loudly for Kurt. At that moment, Wallace reminded them that the final battle would be between Liam and Derek, expressing concern that Liam might get killed. Nias insisted that there was no way Avid would lose, but added that this would only be true if the opponent fought fairly. Suddenly, the arena felt strange and everyone sensed something was wrong. The space was then invaded by space pirates. However, Nias noticed that the pirates' mobile knights were made from the latest models of the first weapon factory. Isla wondered what was going on, and Wallace realized that this was all Derek's doing, intending to kill Liam for sure. The space pirates continued to pour into the arena until they had completely surrounded Liam and his avid. Then Derek appeared with his personal mobile knight, expressing how happy he was to see Liam. Liam smiled, pleased that Derek hadn't chickened out, as he was eager to see him grovel. Derek couldn't believe that Liam still had the guts to taunt him even while being cornered. Since Derek had also teamed up with those monitoring House Claudia, he was more than ready to give Liam a serious beating. He loudly admitted that he had bribed the tournament's organizers, making it too late for Liam to back out. Liam noticed how much Derek was talking. He remembered Brian mentioning the observers from House Claudia the other day. Liam assumed they would lose their jobs if Rosetta married someone, but he still couldn't believe they would team up with Derek. He thought they were fools and asked if that was all they had. He pointed out that Derek's side didn't have enough numbers. However, he saw it as a great chance to test the upgraded Avid's performance. He asked if this was the best a lowly baron like Derek could do. Angry, Derek ordered his men to attack. A large group of mobile knights charged at Avid, but they were easily cut down with a single swing of Avid's greatsword. Derek stood speechless as pieces of his comrades rained down from the sky. Liam remarked on how smoothly he could move Avid now without the old creaking noises and thought about how he needed to praise Neas for doing such a great job. Derek began to sweat, realizing how terrifying Liam was as he tore the latest models of mobile knights to shreds. Despite the fear Derek felt, he ordered the mercenaries to continue attacking from a distance. Shots were fired, but Avid remained completely unharmed by the barrage. Derek and his men were shocked by the strength of Liam's mobile unit. Liam then began his attack, slicing through the mercenaries' mobile knight units as if they were made of butter. Some of the mercenaries were stunned and attempted to flee with their units. They were called out by Liam, who declared that they would not be allowed to escape. Liam quickly caught up with them. The mercenaries begged for their lives, but Liam did not hesitate to kill them on the spot. Despite being outnumbered, he remained in good condition and announced that anyone who attacked him would die. The entire arena fell silent. The mercenaries' captain watched the scene unfold from his mothership. He referred to Liam as a demon and wondered how they could possibly win against him, having seen him easily slice everyone in half without breaking a sweat. The rest of his men were ordered to retreat before Liam could turn his attention to them. A man in a suit reminded them of their contract, which required them to kill Liam. The captain responded that the men in black should handle the assassination themselves, adding that he no longer cared about the contract and did not want to be involved with Liam, as they had never intended to face him directly. The man in black, unable to assassinate Liam directly, grew concerned about the mercenary pirates' retreat. Suddenly, someone emerged from the shadows and mentioned that Liam's assassination could not be ignored. Kukuri easily crushed the captain into a pulp, calling them weak and remembering how the pirates in his time were tougher. The pirates were shocked to see Liam's followers on their ship. As Kukuri and his men moved closer, the pirates opened fire, but their bullets were useless, simply bouncing off Kukuri. Without any hesitation, Kukuri cut through them effortlessly, as if playing Fruit Ninja. The man in black stated that he was an emissary of the Empire, warning that any harm to him would cause trouble. Kukuri acknowledged that it would indeed be inconvenient, but he and his men despised those who served the Empire. Kukuri's subordinate confirmed this by stabbing the man in black's thigh. Kukuri apologized for the injury, but his subordinate continued to stab the same wound, saying that someone who enjoyed tormenting others should feel pain as well. It was pointed out that the man in black knew about the Empire's corruption and should be more familiar with it than anyone. The men were then instructed to teach the man in black a lesson, making him understand what true darkness was. Once they finished dealing with everyone on the ship, Kukuri and his men left, having received another request from Liam. Kukuri ordered his men to capture some pilots and place them inside their mobile units, ensuring Liam would have more enemies to face below. Meanwhile, a group of men in black in another office lost contact with the raiding team. They assumed the team had already been wiped out and realized they would be in danger next. Just then, someone entered the office, and as they had feared just seconds before, their Grim Reaper appeared. The bald man who had tried to intercept the intruder had his hands sliced. A woman stepped in, expressing her disbelief that the same order had been foolishly followed for 2,000 years. The laughing face of the man who created the order to turn them into stone was clearly imprinted in her memories. She regretted not tearing him apart. Upon hearing her words, the men in black assumed that the woman in front of them was Marie of the Three Knights. They found it hard to believe she could still be alive in this era. Marie glared at them, holding two jagged swords in both hands, her expression cold and menacing. Marie was surprised that they knew about her. She had been waiting for the right time to exact her revenge and get everything off her chest. She couldn't believe that the Empire had not only made themselves her savior's enemy, but had also laid their filthy hands on Rosetta. Although she thought they were fools for their actions, she was thankful, as it gave her the chance to finally fulfill her destiny. She swore she would never lose someone dear to her again, and would protect them, no matter the cost. 2,000 years earlier, Marie had been in a garden with a young lady. The young lady had fallen from a tree and Marie had caught her. She was shocked that someone from the Claudia ducal house would climb trees. The young lady had reminded Marie of how she herself used to sneak out of imperial parties. Marie had replied that she used the excuse of looking for her. The young lady had called that unfair. Marie had then changed the subject and asked for help with her annoying bangs. The young lady had braided Marie's hair without hesitation and had told her to get used to doing it herself. However, Marie had planned to keep asking for her help in braiding her hair. After some laughter, the young lady mentioned that the imperial court had become dangerous recently due to a shift in power at the top. Maria took her hand and assured her that there was nothing to worry about, promising to protect her when the time came. Following the fall of House Claudia, Marie obeyed the emperor's orders and continued fighting to keep her promise of saving her friend. However, the promise was broken when Marie was turned to stone. In the end, she was unable to save her. 2,000 years later, she reunited with her friend's descendant, who allowed her to exact her revenge. Standing amidst a pool of blood and corpses, Marie felt fortunate to serve under Liam, as her 2,000 years of suffering had finally begun to ease. Meanwhile, in the arena, only Liam's and Derek's mobile units remained on the battlefield. Liam remarked that no one else seemed to be coming down and asked Derek if that was the best he had. Derek, feeling insulted, responded that he wasn't finished yet. Suddenly, 4 units descended into the arena, each looking unique. Derek explained that he had summoned them while Liam had been distracted by his rampage. It was said that these newcomers were well known among pirates, and Derek claimed they had arrived after hearing Liam's name and the promise of an extra reward. Liam was glad to hear that some big shots had arrived, hoping they would entertain him. One of the pirates laughed and leaped high into the sky. He claimed that Liam's loud mouth would be shut and activated a laser-like blade on his spear. The other pirates began moving as well, believing that taking down pirate hunter Liam would let them live in luxury for the rest of their lives. However, their attacks were useless against Liam's barrier, and they were blown away. They were told by Liam to value their lives rather than challenge him with such meager abilities. He then grabbed the hilt of his sword and used a technique called One Flash. With a single swing of his sword, everything in front of him, including the terrain, was blown away. 2 pirates were evaporated by the technique, and another enemy mobile unit was sent flying. Seeing the aftermath of his technique, Liam remarked that it wasn't bad for a test run. He said it had enough power, but admitted that achieving the perfect one-flash sword style with such a large sword was still impossible. He then spotted a surviving enemy and decided to test something on him. Liam switched to another weapon and a magic circle appeared in front of him. 4 arrow-like projectiles formed and flew toward the escaping pirate. The pirate detected the high-energy signal behind him but was too late to dodge. His mobile unit was hit and blown to smithereens. Watching the enemy explode like fireworks, Liam was impressed and commented that the cost had been worth it. Derek laughed in disbelief at the sight. Derek could hardly believe what he was witnessing. The named pirates couldn't even scratch Liam's mobile knight. Resigned to his fate, Derek assumed his death at Liam's hands was inevitable. Panicked, he attempted to flee, but Liam quickly noticed and intercepted him. Terrified, Derek attacked with his fragile mobile knight, but Liam, unimpressed, pinned him down effortlessly with his greatsword. When Derek tried to block the strike, his sword cracked under the pressure. Desperate to save his life, Derek begged for mercy, promising to do anything in return. Liam asked if he was serious, and Derek swore never to defy him again or cause him trouble. To sweeten the deal, Derek offered money, women, and even a stash of elixirs he had personally hoarded. Intrigued, Liam questioned the existence of these elixirs. Derek revealed that his family possessed a unique heirloom capable of producing unlimited elixirs, promising to hand over as much as Liam wanted if spared. In truth, the device had been lost during an assault on the House Banfield's resource satellites, and Derek was merely stalling for time. Liam, however, smirked wickedly and claimed he didn't need anything Derek offered. With a menacing grin, he declared his intent to kill Derek anyway. Derek, drenched in sweat, pleaded for Liam to reconsider, reminding him of the supposed elixirs. Unmoved, Liam thrust his sword into Derek's mobile knight, accusing him of lying. He stated that he had no interest in items that could be purchased with money. Retrieving his weapon, Liam stabbed again, proclaiming that he would take his time ending Derek to ensure he couldn't be revived with elixirs later. Derek, overwhelmed with fear, broke into tears and fell silent, watching helplessly as Liam raised his greatsword high. Liam coldly declared that Derek's greatest mistake had been opposing him. With deliberate precision, he brought his weapon down, delivering a killing blow. The mobile knight's cockpit was visibly destroyed, and we could only assume Derek was butchered in there. The barrier was removed, revealing Liam standing proudly over Derek. Everyone was shocked. They couldn't believe the organizers had allowed the fight to escalate to the point of destroying the cockpit. On top of that, it was already clear to everyone that Liam would win. Meanwhile, Nias giggled at Ovid's victory, though she felt disappointed for missing the crucial moments of the fight. Despite that, she felt proud, as this victory proved her factory's mobile knights were the strongest. Wallace remarked that Liam would face trouble now, as this event was essentially a declaration of war against House Derek. Kurt reassured him, claiming there was nothing to worry about since Liam was strong. Isla agreed, her eyes shining with admiration. Wallace, however, questioned their confidence, worrying that if Liam died, his own life might also be in danger. Soon after, the organizers announced the tournament's cancellation due to unforeseen circumstances and advised all students to return to their dorms. Nias, Ela, and Kurt expressed their disappointment, while Wallace reflected on how unusual the people around Liam seemed. He wondered if he was just as odd for being one of them. Meanwhile, Rosetta woke up on a soft, fluffy bed and started recalling Liam's assertiveness earlier. A caretaker approached her, asking if she felt unwell and assuring her that everything was being handled. She explained that the school had granted permission for Rosetta to rest, and that she would be there to assist her at all times. Rosetta, surprised to now have a personal caretaker, felt unsure of how to interact with her. The caretaker reported that examinations had shown nothing abnormal and asked if Rosetta felt strange. Rosetta assured her she was fine and then asked about her wedding with Liam. The caretaker explained that the arrangements were complete and that the ceremony would take place after their graduation. Although Rosetta felt happy hearing this, she questioned whether Liam was only pursuing the ducal peerage of her house by acting so decisively. The caretaker dismissed this idea, explaining that the Banfield family held no interest in titles and had even taken on massive debt in the past, without concern for rank. She hinted that Rosetta knew the real reason better than anyone. Rosetta understood that the peerage carried little value beyond its name, but she remained uncertain about Liam's true feelings in wanting her as his wife. The caretaker chuckled, expressing envy of Rosetta, and claimed that Rosetta was the only woman Liam had ever desired, no matter the cost. Her words made Rosetta blush deeply. The caretaker added that Liam had never shown interest in other women, which had once worried his retainers. Overwhelmed, Rosetta began to tear up, her face burning with embarrassment. The caretaker encouraged her to focus on recovering and forget about her classes for now. Soon after, Liam found himself at the center of a meeting in an office. The adults present commended him, remarking that he had truly outdone himself this time. A man told Liam there was no need to kill Derek in such a manner. Maria defended Liam, arguing that leaving Derek alive after he had used pirates to take down her master would be senseless. She reminded them that death was an inherent part of the tournament, and that a school should instill the pride of nobility. She insisted they should praise Liam instead of criticizing him. Liam felt a sense of pride as he sipped his tea. Despite being seen as a villain, he believed that winners were always in the right. He understood the adults couldn't punish him in a world where survival of the fittest reigned. The adults voiced concerns about other families potentially holding grudges against House Banfield. Liam dismissed their worries as he was unfazed by resentment. Angrily, he questioned if he was supposed to tolerate everyone's nonsense and reminded them that they could have intervened with Derek from the beginning. Maria cheerfully supported his stance. The meeting's presider then addressed the broader consequences of Liam's actions, pointing out that they had caused trouble not only for the school but also for the nobility. He acknowledged the circumstances but requested that Liam show some remorse. In response, Liam sarcastically asked how much money it would take to silence them. The adults, intimidated by a child, remained speechless. Liam softened his tone, apologizing for his harsh words, and suggested doubling his donation to the school as a form of punishment. The adults were stunned into silence. Liam then asked if they had further complaints or if his gesture was insufficient as a penalty. When one adult attempted to speak, the presider intervened, emphasizing the gravity of the situation and urging Liam to understand the potential consequences. Liam acknowledged their concerns and left the office. The adults were left in shock. One trembled at the sight of Maria's unusual eyes. Another started praising Liam, calling him a genius and more capable than most adults. He remarked that it was typical for overachieving students to create their own problems. The head recalled Liam's large donation, noting that doubling it was remarkable. He sighed and looked up at the sky, merely wishing to caution Liam about his actions. Meanwhile, Rosetta was seen lingering near a room's door, hesitant to knock. Kurt appeared and asked if she was looking for Liam. Startled, Rosetta let out a shriek. Kurt apologized for scaring her and asked if she had business with Liam. She admitted she needed to discuss something with him and whispered that the knights and maids following her were the issue. She confessed that their constant presence made her unable to relax. Kurt informed her that Liam was not in the dormitories and asked if she had spoken to the knights and maids about it. They confirmed Rosetta had never asked them, nor did they know why she was at the boys' dorms. Rosetta froze, realizing she should have asked them first. Kurt then remembered Liam would likely be in the courtyard and offered to take her there. Outside, they found Liam standing in front of a tree, gripping a wooden sword with intense focus. Kurt advised Rosetta to keep her distance, warning her of potential danger. Confused, Rosetta asked why. Kurt directed her to observe the area around Liam. She noticed the falling leaves were being sliced cleanly in half. Yet Liam stood perfectly still, his eyes closed, holding the sword motionless. Rosetta and the knights were stunned. Kurt explained how dangerous it was to approach Liam while he was concentrating, suggesting they wait until he finished since Liam disliked interruptions. Rosetta, still skeptical, asked if Liam was truly cutting the leaves in half as she couldn't see it clearly. Kurt affirmed it and shared that Liam had worked tirelessly for years to achieve such mastery, combining his talent with relentless effort. Rosetta finally grasped the depth of Liam's dedication. She realized he wasn't simply gifted, but someone who had worked hard to earn his abilities, someone she envied. Feeling ashamed, she admitted to herself how pathetic she had been. Calling herself an embarrassment, she turned away and walked off. Kurt asked if she didn't plan to meet Liam. Rosetta replied that she couldn't face him and left the courtyard with her servants. That is the end of the recap at chapter 35.1. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.